What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Mayrand podcast. Today, my guest is Khai Krepela. Khai is an ex-pro skier and freeski legend who's now CEO at Hinterland skis. Khai is undoubtedly one of rail skiing's all-time greats. He blew up onto the scene in 2012 with his standout segment in Toy Soldier Productions' film Act Natural. He then went on to a legendary 10-year role where he filmed with Poor Boyz in 2013 and then joined Level One for their films Less, Small World, Pleasure, Habit, and Romance. During that time, Khai was also seen in Slush Games, 4x9, and Good Company projects, competed in X Games Real Ski, had multiple appearances in Line's Traveling Circus, and was in numerous Good Enough edits. After his ski career, Khai hustled and managed to eventually get a job at K2 Skis as a senior marketing manager. After a few years there, Khai is now in a new role as the CEO at Hinterland Skis. In this episode, we talked about Kai's upbringing and what led him to pursue the goal of becoming a pro skier. We talked about filming with Toy Soldier Productions, linking up with Poor Boyz for the Detroit segment in Tracing Skylines, one of free skiing's most unique segment ever. We talked joining Level One and filming with them for many years. We talked about how it was filming with the Traveling Circus. We talked about how, despite filming with many of free skiing's biggest production companies, his crew always remained good enough. And we ended up with the transition from a pro skier career to working inside the industry and his experience at K2 Skis and now at Hinterland Skis. Thanks to the sponsors, Axis Board Shop and Dickens Restaurants, and big shout out to the patrons on Patreon. Let's go. Mr. Khai Krepela, welcome to the podcast.
What's up? Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
You're a guy I've been looking forward to have on for a couple years. I think you were on some jobs that didn't allow you to come on podcast, but now it's a different thing. So I'm hyped.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we won't say it wasn't allowed, but it was, what would we say, discouraged.
Yeah.
They didn't love the idea.
I understand that sometimes you're in positions where it might not be the best ideas, or with my podcast, I try to have it as open as can be. And not be too politically correct. And I know you're someone that has big opinions on skiing and is super passionate and has been involved. And sometimes you're in a certain position where you can't necessarily, you got to stay on brand, let's say.
Yeah. Well, I think that my opinions on skiing is one reason I've made it as far as I have. On the business side at least.
Now you're working on the behind the scenes of skiing. We will get to talk about that. You've been involved as a pro skier for over 10 years. And we know that anyone who's involved and are dedicating their life to skiing like that has big opinions, but it's not everyone who necessarily wants to share them. Or, if you're involved in a way like that, you definitely have some opinions.
Definitely. Everybody does. Yeah. Let's be real. Everybody has opinions. It's just who wears it on their sleeve.
Something that made me laugh, and I always say that as much as I followed you all your career, I always like to go back through all your stuff just to refresh the memory and, get some ideas. The last thing I watched before this podcast is your Slush Insta banger you did years back. And that's so funny because we see just how good you are. There's some funny calls in there, some tech tricks mixed in with some weird grabs or whatever. And then there's a switch butter call, and you're just like, yep, there's maybe only one that's ever been done. All the rest are shuffles. And we just can see in there like, okay, Khai has some big opinions.
Yeah, I definitely have always had especially with like the quote unquote cool side of skiing of like what is called like, I've always had a bit of trouble. There's some legit people out there, and there's people who put on the swag and call it a trick.
So who's that guy that did a switch tail butter properly? Because in my book, it's Henrik.
Yeah. I mean, if I really tried to pick it apart, like there's probably a couple, but like, yeah, Henrik, Kiefer was pretty good at it, Jack Borland, but the majority of them are going to be just we'll call them whirly birds.
Do you have that same opinions for forward butters? or mostly for switch butters?
Mostly for switch butters. Um, like because I mean, there's don't get me wrong, there's a lot of that like just skirting, but I feel like that the noses that people were able to get on him a little bit more, which is kind of weird because it seems like that would be the harder one, but yeah,
Yeah.
there's always just a mix of it, and, But I feel like that one's like if you wanted to call it a real butter, a nose butter, it had to be a real nose butter.
That thing made me think of you and Jason Aaron's, because you guys are great buddies. You've been BFFs for I don't know how many years. So I know you probably talked about this with Jason being involved as a judge and there being a big trend with butters these days, and the whole thing of I know he makes it a big point to have a distinction between a good butter and a bad butter, and it's just not just because you're attempting it that you're rewarded.
Hmm.
Do you ever talk about that stuff? Do you ever think about it when you see it with your critical eye?
Well, honestly, we've never really like dove into it too much. I mean, Jason and I is like we're like such great friends. Our opinions can be quite different, and so like if we get talking about stuff, it doesn't necessarily get heated, but it's not necessarily productive. Um, and it's just kind of like I also have like so much respect for that world because it's like Jason has the job of taking something that's like in some ways people believe it's supposed to be like a creative expression, but in a judging world it's very subjective, and so then you clash those two together, and then it comes to the point man, Jason, who has to decide like, yeah, sure, that swivel nose butter whatever looked good, but was it legit? And so like like there's a reason I don't judge, and that's because like I will keep my opinions, but I know they're my opinions. I don't necessarily want to like put a stake in it that my opinions are always right. And when you're a judge, you have to do that. So we don't really talk about it too much because honestly, Jason's better at arguing it, and he should be because he's top
Yeah.
dog over there. And I quite frankly don't care that much.
Yeah, you've been involved in street skiing, and we'll get to talk about that. But in the whole, let's say, side of the sport that is not competitions,
Yeah,
um, not to say you're a street skier, because yeah, you've done street parts, and that's what made your legend. But been involved in a bunch of park stuff, and you've competed a bit in rail jams here and there. But yeah, you're not
yeah.
you're not in Sunday morning streaming a World Cup in your on your couch.
No, no, at least not anymore, man. This is gonna date me, but like I can't even track it anymore. Like the spins and the flips that are going on is crazy. Like I'm from the day where like we freaked out because the top three people in the U.S. Open all did switch tens.
Yeah.
Like that was a big deal. That was the podium, and now I don't even know what rotation it's up to now. It's like it's a whole new sport. I still like watching like street parts and stuff because I feel like I can understand it. But yeah, the whole like World Cup, I'm like I don't. What is this? This is nuts.
The whole talk as big air and jumps progressed when you and I were younger was, oh, it's going to become aerials. And
Mm-hmm.
every year was about that. But if you look at it pretty neutrally, like no judgment, but it is what it is now.
Mm-hmm.
To someone who is not initiated to the sport, seeing switch trip 21 and dub 23, it's not, they don't know what's happening. They just know there was a lot of flipping, a lot of spinning.
Totally, and like I'm not knocking it at all. It's just reached this level that's just like so mind boggling that like so in skiing, like I've always thought like attainable skiing is something that can really like appeal to people.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's where like World Cup, Big Air, X Games, Big Air. It's like to me, it's not attainable. Like I look at that, and I was a professional skier at one point. I'm like I can't even begin to fathom skiing up to a jump and trying whatever that was.
Yeah.
Like where.
But I think that's something that's really cool with someone, with how people can be pro skiers, but also be super, have skill that are super specific to a niche within free skiing. Like you can have someone who's a pro skier, like backcountry specific, but has never hit a rail almost.
Mhm.
And you can have someone like you, or let's say a Tucker Fitzsimons, that Tucker is one of the best rail skier in the world, but will he go do a dub 10 on the jump? I don't think we could give him money to do that. I think he'd be like, "Fuck off! I'm not trying that." Sorry, Tucker, if you dub 10. It's an example I had in mind, but you're
Yeah.
someone who's so good at rails, but at the same time, were you anyway? My whole point is you were able to make a career out of a special talent within skiing, which is dope. I think
Yeah.
that ability.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of like I attest that to like why I was able to have a career is that growing up, it was pro skiers did everything. They competed, they filmed movie parts, they skied POW, they hit rails. It was all that. But I, like you and I, and everybody in my circle, were in the area where like you could specialize in things, and like you could look at what you were doing, you could create a brand around it. And that's exactly what I did. Like I was never a very good jumper. And so I was never going to convince myself that I was going to go to the X Games and win it. And I was good at rails, and then street skiing kind of, with like the rise of like 4x9 stuff. And it became its own genre. And it's like, okay, like I'm going to lean into that. I'm going to lean into what I'm good at, and I'm going to have fun doing it. I think that was the biggest part, is that's just also what I like doing, and, create a brand around it. And that's what I tell kids. Like if they ever ask me, it's like to this day, if they're like, how do I become a pro skier? I'm like, figure out what you're good at, make a brand around it, because quite frankly, it doesn't matter. Honestly, it doesn't matter how good you are at something. It matters that if people care you're doing it.
Mhm.
And that's it. And.
And now it's time for a first sponsor break. Decans is a family owned fast food restaurant chain in the Montreal region with 14 locations now. 70 years after opening their first location on Montreal's Boulevard Pineuf, Decans is still focused on what matters most: the same menu with great food made out of quality ingredients. I've said it, I'm a Decans super fan, and many people ask me what's my go to. It's their famous Wally Burger, a double cheeseburger with slices of pepperoni on top. It's so good. Also, Dickens is now selling their famous sauce in their restaurants and in many Metro grocery stores throughout Quebec. Plus, they've put a bunch of great recipes to go along with it on their website at dickansauce.com. Also, big news, they've recently opened 2 new locations on the south shore of Montreal, one in Belleuil and one in Boucherville. Support companies who support skiing, support Dickens restaurants.
I would translate it to building hype.
Yeah.
Or building hype maybe is too structured of a thought, but it's, are people hyped to see you? Like Jake Carney will do a switch out and people will be hyped out of their mind.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas you might do a 2 Pretz 8, but if it's not looking good or if it doesn't have any persona, then what do we care?
Exactly. Yeah.
That's something that stood out to me a lot, and we'll get into your whole history. But watching all your segments today was, you're someone who could have done way more technical tricks on your parts, because I know you're that good, but it felt like you were really focusing on the rail choice, the feature approach, making it look good, rather than like, you had the talent to, on some of those rails, to do an extra Francois Pret 6, but could see that no, that's not what it's about.
No, and that's I'm gonna feel kind of lame saying this, but it's like that's where like the whole brand piece comes from. And it's like, you're creating something in like your own image, and like every film skier ever has had an idea of what they want their part to look like, and then that's kind of what they start to do. And like, yeah, for me, like I took a lot of inspiration from Will Wesson. He kind of was like a bit of a mentor, especially in the street skiing world. And it was that like spot selection was as important as trick selection. And honestly, like, you're going to find somebody else who can do the same trick, but can they do it in the same way on the same feature? Like, and so like, that was the more important part. I really do think that that's one of the reasons like why my skiing was appealing to people.
What really stood out to me, that I think made me like you, I think you've been one of the skiers that I always liked watching the most. Like maybe someone that I would say like, hey, if I could ski like him, I would want to ski like him, because you were always super composed, super strong. Like you would do big stuff in the streets and land as if you came off a small flat rail, like looked strong, didn't look, yeah, always composed, always stylish, hands in the pockets. You could do a trick out of a rail, but still looks like you just did a switch out. So that's something I always appreciated. And as I was watching it today, I was thinking like he really has a rollerblading style, because that's something I always, maybe I remembered it in the back of my head, but I did some also younger, and I remember it being so tech because in skiing, let's say if you land switch, you have a lot of space to be forgiven if you're not centered. Whereas in rollerblade, you're going to eat shit if you're not square. And that's something that really struck me. And then I was trying to look like, okay, how far can I go back in Kai's history? And I didn't find some old promos or old stuff. What I found was old rollerblading videos of you, and then I was like, okay, that's where he got it from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's exactly where I got it from. I mean,
So
like,
tell me about young Kai, because there's not much stuff from you when you were a kid out there skiing wise.
yeah, well, I mean, yeah, like honestly, the skiing wasn't that important to me. Like I filmed when I was like in my early teens. Like I was the film guy because all my friends like McCrae Williams, Tosh Peters, Adam Battersby, they were all the good skiers. I sucked, so I filmed them. So I didn't. There really wasn't anything in me. And I was the rollerblader, and that's kind of like that is like where I got my balance from. That's where I learned to like land. And yeah, you don't have that safety net area where if you land, toe heavy, you're just gonna fall, or you land heel heavy, you're just gonna fall. So you learn to land bolts, and whatever muscle memory stuck in my brain, and that's just kind of how I continued. And one of the reasons, like, you don't really see me land, I won't say you can't find a shot of me landing like a little nose heavy or whatever, but one reason that isn't common is because I never learned how to do it, so I would just eat shit if I did, like I couldn't recover, so I could only land if I landed bolts. And so like that's just kind of how I kept going. And same with like the balance, I never really like used my full ski to like balance. Is like I always kept the rail pretty underfoot because that's how I learned, is to use like the upper portion of my body to stay on the rails. And that's where like that composure definitely came from. Everybody always brings that up. Like I so much of my rollerblading background, even though it was like 20 years ago at this point, or longer, because I'm getting 25 years ago. Jeez. And that's where it all comes from.
Sometimes people hear rollerblading and they see as pejorative, which is, I don't intend it that way. To me, it's really like the fact of being strong and at ease with balance.
Mm-hmm.
That, the other example in free skiing is Kaya Tursky, where she was putting street parts in on blading, and then you could see it in her skiing that she was more solid than any other girls by a mile.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I remember when she did that transition. That was super cool because I knew about her from the rollerblading days, and then all of a sudden she was like coming hot on the ski circuit. And which there's some opinions about that in the rollerblading community, but it's like, hey, she's going to get her bag. Like, don't hate.
Yeah,
There's no money in rollerblading. She's gonna make a living. Like,
yeah,
this is
gotta
dope.
respect the hustle.
For sure, you always have to.
And yeah. So you said something that's super interesting I didn't know about you. So you were filming your boys.
Yeah.
Usually that's something left out to someone who isn't good. I can attest to that.
Well, yeah, dude. Growing up, I mean, I grew up in Park City, Utah, and like, so like we breed Olympic and professional athletes, and just like I liked skiing, I totally did. It wasn't like I hated it, but it just wasn't my thing, and so I didn't care to like really try. Who knows if I had the skills to do it or not? But I didn't. I definitely didn't try, and so like I was pretty into film. Like in my like early like years, I wanted to like go into film school and stuff, and so that's how I got a GL1 and then a GL2 when those were the hot cameras, not just trendy like they are now.
Yeah, that tells how old we are.
Yeah, like that was the high tech. And yeah, I would like film little parts and like put out edits of like my friends growing up, and it's cool to see like a lot of them, like not everybody, but a few of them have like gone on to make really good ski curves. Like, I mean, probably the most notable from then is McCrae Williams. And then like, that's how I met Nick Kiefer, is like, we just went out skiing one day and I filmed him do this rodeo 9. And that was our first day ever hanging out. And we're still friends to this day. And that's kind of how I got like my intro to the ski world. Was through filming my buddies and making parts.
And now it's time for another sponsor break. Access Board Shop has been dedicated to free skiing since its inception in 2002.
At a time when some people and brands were still looking down on free skiing, Axis believed in it fully. After 20 years of supporting athletes, movies, competitions, events, and so much more, Axis is still going strong. Above all, Axis is a ski shop where you'll find everything you need for skiing, snowboarding, or skateboarding. Check them out in store in Saint-Sauveur or online at axisboutique.com. Support companies who support skiing. Support Axis Board Shop.
The first big memory I have of you is Act Natural Toy Soldier Production 2012.
Mm-hmm.
So just to put people in perspective, because it's a while ago and maybe people don't know about Toy Soldier, but they were a crew of people, filmers. Maybe you can tell us more about it also, but that basically came out of nowhere swinging in 2010 with a film that was like centered about just skiers and people from Montana, right?
Yeah, it was 100% filmed in Montana.
Yeah. So then they got a lot of hyped and ended up making a trilogy of films. Their last one being Act Natural. And at the end, that movie was super good, featuring a lot of great skiers that ended up doing big things like you, like Sandy Boville, Noah Wallace, a bunch of other ones, Will Berman.
Mm-hmm.
And your segment in it was super dope. It's like, it's on Vimeo. I'll put a link out. People can go see it. Like, it's still super enjoyable to watch. Great skiing. But for that to be your first segment, when's the switch to be like, okay, I'm not necessarily that into skiing. I film my buddies too. When you have a full segment in a movie like that, it's that you're pursuing something, right?
Yeah, well, it was a long process because I probably stopped filming when I was like 15 years old.
Okay.
And then honestly, I went to just kind of living like a normal kid life. So like I was a semi-professional rollerblader, and like that was my focus. And like I didn't really like do like the normal like high school kid things. I was always like down in Salt Lake, like not hanging out with people in Park City. And then I just kind of did like a regular high school thing. I just like, tried to learn how to talk to girls. I would, try and do my studies and all that, and didn't really care too much about it. But once I hit 18 and, came out of high school and moved down to Salt Lake, started meeting all of the East Coasters, then moved and started making buddies, started skiing a lot more, and kind of realizing that like I actually really did like it. And so, it was a slow process. I had, lived in a house called Couch House where it was just a bunch of ski buddies, and we'd film edits and start getting some momentum that way. Ended up getting picked up by surface skis, getting a little bit of elevation that way. And then kind of by the time it finally had gotten to Toy Soldiers, like that's when like my head was like fully like, I want to be a pro skier. Like I'm going to make it. I still remember when I like first decided. I was driving in a car with two buddies, Mike Smith and Jake Koulos. And honestly, it was before I was very good, but I was like, guys, I'm going to be a pro skier. And I think they looked at me like, yeah, sure. Like, good luck. But I think I'm quite open-minded, but I'm also quite stubborn when it comes to like my personal goals. And if I decide I'm going to do something, I'll figure out a way. And, somehow I made a ski career out of the most niche type of skiing you can,
But sometimes it's better to go niche than to be too broad, as we said.
No, for sure. And I mean, that's the thing is like, I think if I had tried to do it in any other way, I would have just been another kid that was pretty good on the block, and I looked at what I was capable of, and I made it work for myself. And so that's kind of how the transition happened. And then, yeah, Toy Soldiers was cool. That was like one of my favorite points of my career. Yeah. It's always special the first one, but like that was like first full segment I put out that was professional quality. Premieres, touring, everything. That was super cool. I still talk with all those guys, like, the majority of them, semi-frequently.
That in 2012, that was still in the big hype of having crews make movies. There was Level One, Poor Boyz, and a bunch of others that were the big dogs, but there was smaller ones that showed that even though you weren't the big company, you could still make something really good and make it work, kind of between 4x9 and Stepped. And I think in that era, Toy Soldier was probably the most successful. I wouldn't say they had the best movie, because that's not my point, and that's not where I'm going with it. I just mean being organized, managing to get hype, doing big premieres. Like, they were putting on something together that was legit.
Yeah, they did such a good job of like, definitely 4x9 and like Step like paved the path for like crews like Toy Soldiers to come up. But Toy Soldiers, in a sense of what I'm saying, like they looked at their market, they're like, hey, let's make a movie for Montana. So that's where they got their base, and then they got tied in with a bunch of like up and coming really good skiers, and then it just kind of blew up from there. And unfortunately, like it's a ton of work, and even back then, not a lot of money in the industry, so it ended up dying. But like, yeah, they did such a good job. I think Act Natural year we won amateur film of the year, and like that was awesome. Like it was super cool.
That was a big step in those IF3 days where amateur film of the year was something that Stepped won, that 4x9 won. It was something that was a stamp that, okay, you were playing with the big dogs kind of.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember being kind of jealous of them because there was plenty of crews in Quebec, like NSF, ESK. I did Brotherhood, that were trying to get that hype. And then I saw Toy Soldier coming out of nowhere and just getting so much hype. I was like, okay, how do you do that, guys? Like, and sometimes there's no explanation. There's just that it factor that people were into it, and that's fine,
Yeah, I remember Brotherhood was like kind of like the competitor, like.
I hope. I
remember it was like when you looked at like who's on the level that you're at and who's trying to get to do that. It was Brotherhood and Toy Soldiers, and like, dude, you guys put out good stuff. It wasn't.
Yeah, what was hard in Quebec at that time is that all the talent was so separated in between different crews that it was kind of diluted. But that's for a whole other podcast.
Yeah, you can talk about Quebec history.
Yeah, Quebec history. I'll do that one day.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, that Act Natural segment is that type of stamp that sticks in someone's mind. Like after that, I knew like, okay, Khai Krepela is the guy. Like you open your segment with a humongous rail to drop. I don't know how much it is, 430, 40 feet, huge 270 out. Your closer shot is a bridge rail, closeout rail over a death gap also. Plus, there's a bunch of technical and stylish things throughout. It's really something that I think spoke to the entire industry in some sense, where you didn't need 5 years of parts to be on the map. That was your stamp of, I am here. My name's Khai Krepela. I'm the rail god.
Yeah. That I didn't earn that title yet, but no, that was a big breakthrough year for me. I mean, I got nominated for I think breakthrough part of the year, or I got nominated for something. I didn't end up winning it. I forget who did. I think like Carl won it maybe, but like, I mean, whatever. It was cool. It was like, I went from a no-name nobody to all of a sudden getting nominated and being somebody that like, people were like, oh, let's keep an eye on them. And that ended up paving the way for me to like, Poor Boyz and then Level 1, where I lived out the rest of my professional days.
Yeah. Where you signed a long-term contract.
Yeah. A verbal contract with Josh Berman, but that's legally binding.
Yeah. And how was it linking up with Toy Soldier? Because as we said, they started off as many crews do, where it's like a lot of people involved, and it's a first movie, and you're just trying to do it. But then when you got in, it felt more not serious in how they make their movie, but you could see that there was a smaller crew of quote unquote more established skier. They were really trying to do it bigger, it seemed. Mm-hmm. How did that link up come about, and that whole season, let's say?
So it'd be kind of a bit of like a history lesson, but like, yeah, so it was like a trilogy of movies, and I can't remember the first name.
First one was Come Find Us. Second one was Set Your Sights. And third one was Act Natural.
Yeah. So yeah, Come Find Us was like where they got their like name on the map. That's just where they were filming their buddies. That's just local crew. Everybody did. It was skier, snowboarders. There was like really no like rhyme or reason to who did it. It's like, we're at a spot, we're gonna shoot it, show up. And then Set Your Sights is actually the year that I linked up with them. That was the first year that they had filmed outside of Montana, and they were down here in Park City filming with Carl Fosfet. There's actually a lot in my career that I can track back to like thanking Carl for. and they were hitting this bridge rail, and they're like, "Hey, Carl, do you know any good skiers local that would come hit this with us?" So Carl called me up, hit this bridge rail, ended up getting like 2 or 3 shots, a couple shots in that movie, like very, just a blip in the movie. And that was enough to like create a connection. I think it was Justin Broden and Johnny Durst that were down here filming. And I hit it off with those guys super hard. And that just kind of got us going. I went up to the premiere, made good friends with them. And then that's where they're just like, okay, you're good. Let's actually film a part, and that's where they had kind of like found their crew of like, yeah, Will Berman, Noah Wallace, myself, Dash, Shaylee, Sandy Boville, like all these people. And they're like, okay, like we're going to make a real movie, not just like a local boy movie. Like we have a crew, we've collected these people. And, we were all spread out all out the country. Will was in Colorado, Sandy was in Canada, I was in Utah. And like, we just like all came together. And like, I think Shaylee's the only one that was consistent from the beginning. But yeah, that's just kind of how it happened. Like I got lucky with Carl calling me up, and yeah, we just made that connection, like hit it off, a bunch of hungry young 20-year-old dudes. Like you can make a lot of things happen.
I think it was a really good timing where Level 1 was set. They were in their prime with Ahmed, Hornbeck, B-Dog, Henrik. They were full. Same thing with 4x9. They had their crew with Wallish. They were filming with Henrik. They had people. Stepped had their crew. And then it's great when a bunch of up-and-coming skiers look at each other and they're like, yo, do we make something happen? And you guys did. And not only you did, most of the guys in that crew ended up with Level 1. You look 4 years into the future, let's say, from that movie. Sandy, Will, you, maybe some others I'm forgetting, Shay are all filming with Level 1. So that was really a great, how do we call it? Proof of concept.
Yeah.
Like, hey, Josh Berman, we can do it.
Well, dude, it was like almost like it was a minor league team. Everybody got called up. I mean, Carl even too. He put out great parts with them, and then you ended up being like Poor Boyz poster boy for a while. It's just like, yeah, that's where we were the minor league team that came out swinging. They're like, oh, they got some heavy hitters. Let's bring them up. Which was cool. It was awesome. And honestly, they did that not just with the athletes, they did it with the filmers too.
Johnny Durst, that ended up being a big element of Level 1 for many years after that.
Yeah, big element. I mean, Shane DeWallaby ended up going and working for Freeski and kind of doing stuff. Like people like realize that people in Poor Boyz, I won't say everybody, like everybody's gone on to do amazing careers, but there was definitely some like cherry picking from the industry out of toy soldiers. Like I think it was just one of those special moments where like a lot of very talented and hungry guys that were destined to do it in some way, shape, or form got together, and then the industry was like, sweet, you guys consolidated for us, let's grab you. Like, and it worked out great. And like that, I get bummed. Like it's funny. Like you only every once in a while will I run into somebody who actually like knows about toy soldiers. And I'm like, for such like a short period of time, it did have such a big effect on the industry that the majority of people will never know, because it was short lived and it was relatively small.
It was at an era where it was still DVDs, so you won't find a movie online. There's many of the Act Natural segments that are on their Vimeo page. But yeah, it was before movie being released for free online. It's that's
I still got one in plastic somewhere, but I'm saving all that. I have a little safe keep box that I hopefully will give to my kids one day, and they won't know how to watch it because it'll be on a DVD, but I keep them anyways,
I also have that.
Yeah,
for old time's sake.
Yeah, you got it.
To go back to your Act Natural segment and how big of an impact it had, we just touched on it for the last couple of minutes, but your Act Natural segment was such a banger in the industry that some people have to hustle for so long before getting their chance with a big time company. The year after, you were filming a segment with Poor Boyz, so it was like chink, stepped up the ladder quickly. And you mentioned something about Carl helping you out a lot in your career. Was that something that was related to him getting on Poor Boys, or how did that come about?
It honestly, it's like almost the exact same story as Toy Soldiers. So really, that one I got lucky. I got lucky, and I was just kind of dumb. So it was that Detroit part, and honestly, they couldn't find anybody who wanted to go. People were scared to go, and so like Carl, crazy Carl, he was fine. Then there was Max Morello. He was kind of in the same boat I was. He was just good, but relatively unknown and hungry.
Yeah, Max was completely unknown. Like,
Yeah,
I knew him. He's an East Coast guy from Ottawa or from the Ottawa region.
yeah.
Um, Insanely good, but that being an East Coast skier in Canada, you get less attention than being from Park City. So I'm just
Hmm.
guessing it was like, dude, do I want to go on a Poor Boys trip? Yes.
Yeah, and it was the exact same thing. It was like not even like a thought. Like there wasn't like a thought of like how dangerous will it be? Like will there be snow?
Yeah.
All this stuff. So and that's kind of it. And it's just the luck of the draw ended up being like an incredible segment. Like one of the things in my career I'm most proud of. Just because the story is so cool. But yeah, it's like pretty much I got lucky. Like Carl was like, Kai's good and he'll come. Like I and like I scraped that together. Like I had no money at that time. I was broke as could be. So I borrowed $600 from a buddy and bought a plane ticket and shot out to Detroit. And I think I was there for 2.5 weeks, and we filmed the whole thing. And it was
Yeah.
like definitely the most challenging shooting conditions I ever experienced.
Shout out to that friend who gives out $600 to make it happen.
Dude, Mike Smith, and I hope he listens to this because I'm still not sure I ever paid him back. So you can come chase me down. Um, dude, like, yeah. It just at that time where it was like it didn't matter. I was gonna make it happen, and like Poor Boys, even for me more than even level one, like Poor Boys was so much of my childhood. Like Happy Days. That was my favorite movie of all time. And also I was like, I can go film with them. I was like, I'm doing it. Even though they weren't like necessarily the cool brand at that time. Like they were respected, but level one was the cool one.
Hmm.
Um,
And Stepped, that was really on the come up. Not on the come up, but
yeah.
they were the guys at that
Yeah.
point. But you're right. Poor Boys was still Poor Boys.
Yeah, it was Poor Boys and like respected, but it was definitely not like, the cool. But I mean, I still think that's cool. But yeah, shout out to Carl once again for like calling me up to the big leagues. And yeah, it ended up being like a super cool shoot. I mean, scary as all hell at some points, but
And it's a super cool segment that I think has helped establish you also. And talking about branding, because segments were rarely released in those days, or if they were, it was on Vimeo, and Vimeo was kind of its own thing that
mhm.
couldn't get a broader appeal because it was its own niche. But for whatever reason, Carl Fosfet released it on YouTube, which was rare at that time. And now
Mhm.
we look back, and that segment has close to 800,000 views,
Yeah.
which is like one of the most seen ski segments of all time.
Yeah, it's so cool. Because it went viral, maybe not like globally or even nationally, but in the Michigan region, like it went ultra viral, which is super cool for me because I have family. Like my mom was born in Pontiac, which is one of the places that we shot. And so it was like cool to have my family see it. But like, yeah, the fact that it was released online, which wasn't super like, common at that point, because it was like, oh, we're losing money, and people hadn't gotten the concept of like the free marketing you get from it. Yeah, it blew up. I remember like it was getting picked up by like radio stations talking about it. Like it was cool, man. It was fun. Like there was newspapers. Like yeah, it was funny. It was a cool experience. I got like a weird following of like random Detroit people for like a minute after that.
Nice.
Yeah.
You know, I had two big notes rewatching that segment. Aside from it being a really cool segment with, ski porn wise, really good segment. You and Max and Carl killed it. But two funny things were at that point in time, I felt like street segments were either ski porn. So there's no thinking about where it's filmed. It's just shots and shots, or either it's feel good. Oh,
Yeah.
we went to Finland. Finland is fun. People are nice. And then that was the complete opposite. It was like, yo, there's people with ski masks and guns looking at us.
Yeah.
So I maybe there was Stepped also starting doing that at that time, but I feel like it's one of the first that was like, or just of skiing all time, that was the darkest, being like, yeah, we're showing Kai doing a wall ride, but there's also an interlude where we're talking about maybe getting killed here.
I mean, dude, if you pause a lot of those shots, you'll see bullet holes in a lot of our spots that we're shooting at. I mean, my personal favorite story, because I wasn't around for the really sketchy part where they got like blocked in by guys with ski masks that they figured out was like people were telling them like that was like a Latin King's like meth house or something. I wasn't there for that, but the funniest thing I thought happened was we were shooting in Highland Park, super super gnarly area of Detroit, and the cops pull up. We're like, we'd like broke into like an abandoned school and we're doing this, and the cops pull up, and all they ask is, "Have you guys been robbed yet?" And and we say no, and they go, "All right, okay," and then they just left. And it was like what a weird like I was like, "Can you stay?" Like, which is, if anybody who knows, like you don't like police coming up to your spots, but this was like, can we get a police escort so we can hit this spot because you got us all freaked out. Yeah, dude, it was an experience. But like luckily, like nothing bad happened.
Yeah.
The worst thing that happened is I got a concussion on that big jump shoot over that big rubble. I ended up going too big and whacking my head pretty hard, but like that was it.
The second note I had is I thought it was so funny how you wanted your opportunity with Poor Boyz and you're young and you're an up and comer. So maybe at that point, and they were really going conceptual. So maybe they were looking for sketchy spots rather than a good spot. They wanted something abandoned or whatever. It's so funny how it's not Kai types of spot. You know, it's Kai doing a cork 7 on a street big air to landing on dead flat. It's a bunch of stuff where I don't think Kai 6 years later would have hit any of those spots. It was all like on a rooftop, jumping over something, like all
Hell no.
stuff that made for cool shots. But are they Kai spots? I don't think so.
No. That at that point, I wasn't honestly at that point, like I wasn't even at the point of like picking my own spots. I was like, you put something in front of me, I'll get a shot on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I would have chosen 90% of those spots. I mean, one of them is a step up. The sketchiest spot we probably did, and honestly, I don't even think it's a very cool shot. I don't like my shot anyways, but it's like I do a 720 like tap a trash can.
Yeah.
That spot was so incredibly sketchy because if you got off balance, you would ski off of like a 60-foot building to flat. Like it was just so. Yeah, I would never do that. In my more veteran years of skiing, I would have like been like, no thanks.
Thank you, but no thank you.
Yeah.
Another shot like that, I was like, it's so sketchy. It's I don't know what type of building it is, but it's clearly abandoned, and you're coming out of a hallway doing a wall ride and then landing outside the building, and in your outrun, there's a 4-foot brick wall.
Yeah.
In your landing. So, and in the shot, we see you kind of breaking, because if you don't break, you're breaking your tailbone or your back in the wall. So it's like, why would you do a wall ride and land in the wall?
Yeah, well, so that was the spot I was talking about where one, you can see bullet holes in it, and
Okay.
two, that was the one that the cops pulled up to. And I think it was one of those things because like our environment was actually like legitimately dangerous, that we didn't. The other stuff became a smaller issue, like how sketchy the outrun is, how sketchy the inrun is. It all became kind of like less sketchy because we were actually in like legitimate danger.
Yeah.
Like not just like self-inflicted danger,
Yeah.
I don't know. It was. I'm so happy I did it. I would never do it again.
That's some good stories when you say that. I'm glad I did it, but never again.
Never again. I'm happy that opportunity came when I was at my hungriest point, because otherwise I'm not sure I would have done it.
But yeah, it was really the pinnacle of. I had that whole thought during the part being like, that's not really any of Khai Krepela type spot, and then the end is the big air that you're doing corks F blonde. That is dope.
Yeah,
But
it's a cool shot.
it's definitely not what I think you would dream of hitting.
Hell no. Hell no. Also, winching into like a big booter, like that was sketchy. We literally were landing on tires.
Yeah.
It was tires that was the landing, and then we just put snow over tires. It was like
The whole structure with bricks and tires, and basically there's what, 1 inch of snow basically to do the jump.
yeah, it took us 2 days to build that spot. And we got the snow from an ice skating rink.
That's the hustle.
That's once again just a bunch of hungry young guys trying to make it happen, you know.
Yeah.
But that was cool. That was another trip. Like I've made a lot of great connections. I mean, Johnny Durst was on that one too.
Okay.
Yeah, that was another one. He was there, but also met like Jasper Newton, Cody Carter, like a bunch of like legit guys. Shout out to those guys.
And then the year after that, you got drafted by Level One.
Yeah.
That was your first year filming for less. It was kind of a renewal of Level One, as we mentioned a few minutes back, that they had their main crew for years that were Phil and Henrik and Hornbeck and Ahmet. And as the landscape was changing with DVDs, with online projects, a bunch of their guys left. And that was the year where Level One became like there was a new Level One that was born that year with new faces that came and ended up staying for years after that and became the face of Level One for, let's say, the 2010s or later half of the 2010s. And you were a part of that draft.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was another one of those like getting lucky, right place, right time. I mean, yeah, how I ended up at Level One was honestly, I kind of worked it a little bit, and I was like, I messaged Berman. I was like, yeah, I feel like my style matches a lot more with Level One. I don't know if I want to shoot with Poor Boyz again. Poor Boyz wasn't going to call me back. I didn't tell Josh that, but I was like, oh yeah, I just don't want to shoot with him anymore. I think I'd be a better fit with you guys, and that got me in. And then like that, that had it kind of happened with like, they're like, yeah, you can come shoot with us, but they put us on kind of like a tester round where they put myself, Shaylee, Sandy Bovell, and Johnny Durst, all Toy Soldier guys, in a car, and they're like, all right, you guys go shoot something. If it's good, we'll put it in. If it's not, we won't. Which ended up working out for all of us because each one of us had a part because we just, once again, super hungry and did that. And then that ended up being the new kind of face, and that was like right around when like Will Berman started kind of coming into play. It was a little early for like Keegan, but yeah, like people were like coming into play, and that did start the next generation because Phil and Henrik had broken off and done their own thing. Parker and CeeLo broken off, and like Ahmet, everybody was breaking off, all these like longtime Level One vets, and Josh was like, okay, we need to do something, and so yeah, we got
in
trial.
Mainstream sports term, we call that a reconstruction.
Yeah, it was a reconstruction. We'll say Josh did that fully on purpose, but I think he got a little lucky too, that just at the right time, there was a group of good, hungry people that were like eager to do it,
Yeah. Well, he kind of, as a businessman, he kind of, how do you say? He kind of helped himself with, let's say, Super Unknown, which he kept the dream alive with a lot of people every year being like, okay, it's kind of people doing their applications every year. He can look at the CVs being like, oh, Super Unknown finalist. Oh, Sandy Bovell, he's good.
Dude, it's the skiing version of like, what is it, the Philadelphia Eagles that like just threw a tryout for like regular Joe Schmoes and ended up finding that guy. I don't watch football, so I don't really know. But it's like that's like the version of it. It's like, you just a regular dude, but you're really good. Here's your chance.
Yeah.
And then also it's like in a very smart way of Josh, it's like I'm finding talent and people are just coming to me than me having to seek them out, which is great. It's brilliant. And it's such a cool event. I love that it's still going to this day. I know my ADD is tracking us away from what we were talking about, but yeah. But yeah, no, I think that's super cool. I mean, and like, I feel like Super Unknown has had such a stronghold in, Montreal, Quebec. Like there's been so many like heavy hitters that have come out of there. And honestly, it's probably, the start of a lot of careers from up there. Cause it's a little detached from the rest of the ski industry. So it's like it allows them to get over here,
Yeah. It's and for people from any parts of the world that is not the United States, where you don't get as much hype, when Magnus Grainer and LSM both won, they were semi unknown, and it's really the
Mhm.
super unknown that made people be like, holy shit, okay, there's those guys. And I remember
Mhm.
a couple of years before that, for Belmar, for Paul, or a bunch of Quebec skiers that were great but that were not Americans, super unknown was a way to say, oh shit, there's those
Mhm.
guys.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It was funny when I was growing up because, like, if you're in the know, you're in the know. So I always knew that there was always like heavy hitters coming out of there. That's like who I looked at as like, okay, those are the people I got to look out for because they're the guys doing it similar to me. That's my competition. Even though in street skiing there's not really competition, but
Mhm.
that's what I always kept an eye out because so many good skiers come out of there.
But you kind of knew that if someone from a crew, like, complete example, but if someone out of a crew does a back eight out of a closeout, which is way too much, but let's just say, then if you're also going at a closeout the year after and you're doing a back two, you'll be like, fuck, I can't. Like, that guy from that crew did it. That's going to be whack.
Yeah,
So there's
totally.
that kind of competition where it's a good competition where it was pushing everyone to do their best.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's like self-inflicted competition.
Yeah.
Like like if like me and Dom Laporte, we have such different skiing styles. But I'll say, like, I looked at him and I'm like, I got to do it this way because he did it that way, it's like we weren't competing, but because we're just competitive by nature, like everybody was doing it.
Mhm.
That's what made us better, like because you wanted to do better.
Yeah.
So
You see something that you like, but you also have your own style, so it just becomes a blend a bit,
totally,
inspired.
yeah,
And yeah,
good
as much
shout
as
out.
I said, your Act Natural segment was a great staple of who Kai is as a skier. The composed style, technical tricks, hard rails. I think your less segment is also a big stamp of who Kai is. I think one of the most Kai shots is there's a long flat rail that is like flat to flat to flat to flat to flat. I don't know how many flat there are, but it's the type of rail that is really hard to trick on because you're going fast and it's just tick, 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 tick. You don't, anyone who slids rail sees that and knows it's fucking hard to trick that. And you just pull out a back swap front two at the end of it, like
hmm
snappy, perfect. And I think that's shots that really speak to how technical you were, where I don't think many skiers could pull off that trick that cleanly on that type of rail where it's so quick and so, it's not a flat rail. At that point, it's really bouncy because you're going from one to the other every fraction of a second.
hmm
Anyways.
Yeah. No, I know what you're saying. Like, I less is my favorite segment I ever put out.
Oh, yeah.
Um, yeah, just, I think there's a bit of nostalgic factor, but it was also like, that's when I really felt like I like made something of my own. Like,
Mm,
whereas like, I love Act Natural, I love this, but that's like kind of what I thought I was supposed to be doing,
yeah.
and less was the first time where like, I feel like it clicked on, like, I was like, okay, I'm going to do what I want to do.
Yeah. As we said with Poor Boys was more, hey, Kai, do this.
Yeah. And like, being young and inexperienced, I hadn't figured it out. And so like, less was just the first one where I was like, okay, like I like to ski a certain way. I like to do certain things. And like, you know, that was the first time. And like I used my own music, like I used all this, like everything I did, I felt like it was my own.
Mm,
And people responded really well to it because at that time it was a little bit different than kind of what everybody else was doing. I'm gonna say I was like, you know, paving paths or anything like that, but it was just a little bit different. And so it felt really good. And I'll, I put out a thing for the B Dog thing, and a lot of my shots in that were from Les,
yeah.
one of my first like major segments. And I was like, okay, this is a good part. So I take a lot of pride in that segment
Yeah.
specifically.
And it really impressed me how, if I think of you quickly, I think of tech tricks and, let's say, good balance, like kinky rails, long rails. But there were some shots that were gnarly as well, with some, I don't know if it's your closing shot or if it's one of the closing shots, but there's a closeout where you go switch lip back four
Mm-hmm.
on a really high rail where That's something I don't think I've ever seen elsewhere, or maybe, very few, let's say. Because the classic for a closeout is front six out or back four, or maybe lip back four. And at some point, when closeouts were a thing around those days, it was getting boring. Like you saw someone coming in, it was a back four, and it's kind of okay. Why are you doing it at that point? But
Mm-hmm.
switch lip back four on a closeout, that
Yeah, that's one of my favorite shots I've ever done, and it's totally not necessarily my style. At that
yeah,
point, it kind of was, to be honest. I was like, I liked closeouts because to me, that was like it was a simple concept. You slide the rail, you jump off the rail. Um, that one's just one of my favorites, just because of how it like kind of ended up being a little corked out, and that was not
yeah,
on purpose.
or
Like
corked out but stomped.
yeah,
So
and like just how I landed, like I think that's one of my favorite like looking shots I've ever done. Because I mean, yeah, I think that was my closing shot, wasn't it? I don't remember, but yeah, no, I know that I'm really proud of that one, even though it's technically simple, but it just has all of those accents that I think makes a shot really cool.
yeah, technically simple, but not so much considering the closeout. Like it's
Yeah,
there's enough risk with the closeout that's why people end up with front six out or back four, because at some point you're limited. But then to go switch lip and back four really is turning up a notch, and also being creative in your trick choice. Because again, I don't think I've ever seen people do that, and it's on a big closeout. It's not a small one by any measure.
yeah,
Oh yeah, that's something that was also funny because you said I don't know if it's my closer. That's something I thought was funny, and I wanted to throw it your way. It is your closer, but it is not your closer. Do you
yeah,
remember?
because it's me skiing through the grass.
That's so weird. Like you have a classic ski porn part, and then the last 12 seconds of your part is you skiing grass, kind of out of nowhere.
I don't know, man. I don't know why we did that.
What was that, a choice on your part, or?
Honestly, I can't remember. I mean, it might have been, but I think it was just kind of like that was the resolution. When you look at like a good storyline, there's the peak,
Mhm.
and then this and
Yeah,
that, and I don't know. I also like that shot. I thought it was funny.
yeah,
I didn't look very It didn't look very gnarly, but it was fucking gnarly. Like I was skiing over like rocks and boulders and stuff. It was so sketchy.
yeah.
I don't know. Just young and dumb, I guess. I don't know why. Can't say.
So yeah, you said that was your favorite segment of all time. Something that made me chuckle a bit looking back is in the years you were involved with Level One, they most of the time they had a park shoot segment with Tim McChesney throwing a big dub, or but you weren't that guy,
Nope.
and that's fine. That
Always went to the park shoots for some reason. Not sure why.
but your intro to that segment is a park shoot rail line,
Yeah.
which is something I don't think we've ever seen in skiing before or after. Just a super dope follow shot on top of a mountain, Schweitzer, I think,
Yeah.
sunset, and it's just a slope run of rail tricks. What
Yeah.
was that about?
Yeah, it was just, yeah, we did a park shoot at Schweitzer, and they had done that, like, yeah, Sunset Ridge line, and, filming it. And the idea was to get that done, a follow cam through the whole
Yeah,
thing, and like, filming individual pieces. But as you can see, like, not one of those features is that impressive alone.
yeah,
And so it was like, it kind of came apparent that it was like, okay, we need to shoot the whole thing. And I was really the only one that was like consistently hitting my line. And so it just turned into that. And like, that actually ended up being another huge thing for me. I got nominated for shot of the year with that one. Once again, didn't win it, never won any awards, but got nominated a few times. But yeah, no, that one was just kind of a cool thing. And like the sun, that shoot honestly sucked. It was like such bad weather. I ended up getting everybody sick. I got like sick, and remember, James Wood flew out. I got him sick. He was sick until the day he left. So he just came to Schweitzer to get sick. The shoot was just bad. It was like that, the chairlift shoot, where it's like had Tim McChesney doing like the dub tens, which is a
yeah,
terrible jump. And then we got wasted and, lit off fireworks and built a hell track. And like, that was like the whole park shoot. It was but that was cool. Yeah. That was one of the few times you can see me like legitimately skiing park like a slopestyle skier.
Yeah. Well, and I think that was my thought also back in the days, maybe, or I don't know. But that was a thought I had watching it is if you have a sunset shoot on top of a mountain on a private shoot with all the level one crew and there's only one follow that comes out of it, maybe it didn't go that well.
No, it didn't, which benefited me because it made me look impressive.
Yeah.
But but it just really wasn't a very good shoot. I think we were able to squeak some good stuff out of it, but like, it's like if a good shoot's good, like the amount of content that comes out of it is absurd. Look at the Nines event.
Yeah.
It's like 4 days and they have content for a year.
Yeah. It makes for a really awesome shot, but also knowing Khai, we know that like I don't know, is it? Yeah, I think one of your trick on that is a 4 on back 2. And we know that like for someone at your level, a 4 on back 2 is nothing special.
No.
But it is a great shot. Like how do you look back on something like that? I guess right now you're over it, you're older, you don't care, but at the time are you like stoked on the sunset shoot and on the follow, or are you just like fuck all that for a 4 on back 2?
No, honestly, because it was like it wasn't like any shot individually. It was like the whole thing was the shot. And so when you do that, you got to like lower your expectation of like the individual tricks. And like, dude, I'm just stoked I did like on that one. The most impressive thing is like that like block up. I do a switch 1, 2 on Pretz 2, and like so like that was the hard one. That one was the one like that I was like, okay, got to make it through. Everything else was just getting through it. Like, and I feel like that's honestly maybe not anymore, but slope style. Like it's like people like got to get through the rails so you can get to the jumps. Just land them, be good. It's a little different now with like Colby and A-Hall doing nutso stuff, but
And from Les, we can go and talk a bit about every movie because I think there's something cool about each one. But just to say, you got your first shot with Toy Soldier with Act Natural in 2012, then 2013 Poor Boyz, then 2014 Level 1, and then you were with them for Les, Small World, Pleasure, Habit, Zigzag, not in it for a reason. I'm curious to talk about that, and Romance. So you were with them from 2014 to 2019. That's a long run.
Yeah. I always had the goal of making it 5 years with them, because that's like what I considered to be like level 1 legacy. Is like it's like plenty of people have come and gone and shot for a year or two and then disappeared, but they don't like have their stamp in the history books. And so I was like, I want to do 5 years, which Zigzag, technically I am in it. It's just in the extras. They cut my segment.
Yeah.
Mine and LJ segment, but we don't need to go too into that. We filmed a whole thing in Russia for it.
Which is online on the Line channel that is called Muscovite Madness.
Yep.
Which Should we get into that?
I mean, sure. It's nothing crazy. It's just like we didn't have a lot of support that year, so I took it upon myself to organize a trip myself, and so we went to Russia.
Support from Level 1 or from sponsors or both?
Honestly, Level 1. Like LJ and I were like waiting for like calls on trips and stuff, and just plans were getting made, and so like I went ahead and just planned it myself. And hit up Danny Kush, who lives in Moscow, who films, and then brought out LJ, and we brought out Dennis Renaulter, and filmed. And like it wasn't the most successful shoot at all. Like some really good stuff. I mean, I think one of my best shots I've ever done, or technical. Like I backslid that quad kink, lip backslide, and I was like, that's a cool shot, but it didn't make the movie because it was part of that segment. There is a bit of tension between myself and Level 1 after that, just because like I ended up going into quite a bit of debt because I'm the one who fronted the money for that. But whatever, it's all.
But I think it's a good subject to get into, because maybe sometimes people have a perspective that is normal when you're outside of it. You see A-Hall, you see Colby Stevenson, you see big dogs, Tom Wallish, thinking pro skiers or film skiers live a luxurious lifestyle. And the reality is, for someone that isn't on that top echelon, I think that's maybe a good side story to be like, oh shit, you paid for it out of your pocket and then you got into debt. So it's like it's a whole other side of the coin.
Yeah, no, I mean that's really where the tension came from. Like, yeah, I was bummed to not have like my shots. Myself and LJ and Dennis were all quite bummed to not have our shots in the movie. But the real stinger was like, yeah, it's like you for just about any shoot, you have to put up your own money. That was kind of just like the name of the game, or your sponsor's money. But a lot of times that ended up just being yours. And then with a shot like that, it's like, okay, like that's how I've always kind of been. It's like, okay, if I'm going to make it happen, I'm going to make it happen. And sometimes you get support, sometimes you don't. And so I planned it all myself. Didn't end up working out, but like ended up, I was the bank that trip, putting it all on a credit card. And for all the kids out there, don't do that. If you got to do it yourself, do not go to Russia or anywhere extravagant. Just go to the Twin Cities, like keep it close. But yeah, I mean, especially street skiing, it's not a luxurious life, like some people could do it well. And shout out to Tom Wallish. I love it. It's the only time I've ever seen anybody stay at the Hyatt on a street trip. But, not most people aren't doing that. And not to knock Tom. He has put in plenty of time in the slums. So he's earned every bit of that. But yeah, it's like, it's a love of the game, and you put up your own money, and it's not a game where you get in to get rich. Like, most people, some people come out of it, but most people it's a passion, and that's kind of what you have to accept.
And I think it's something that we'll get to talk in a few minutes, but how you were a good guy. Being a street skier, you always kind of need to have an eye on the future, because not only is it not paying the bills that much in the present, but definitely not in the future. So with your switch to the business side of skiing, I think that's really something clever, and that will be interesting to talk about. But when you say kids don't go to Russia, I think it's a good thing where I've talked with Payban, and who was it with a couple skiers who all had all great things to say about Russia. And I had notes about how you were a street skier that was a globetrotter, because you hit street with 4x9 in Canada, in Montreal, Ontario. You hit it all around the US. You went to Japan with Level 1. You went to Scandinavia with Wallish and Good Company. So was it that at that point you were like, okay, I'm just going to do every fucking country there is and hit street there? Like, what was the Russia thing?
So it kind of comes back to that thing of like spot selection, of where like I saw that, it wasn't just about the tricks and a big rail. It was like having a little bit of a story behind it it made it so much more interesting, and made it so much more aspirational. And so, yeah, I had done I've skied street in like, not every single place, obviously, but in a lot of the major places globally that you can. And Russia was one that I hadn't been to, and it was like a cool story. And I was like, let's go do it. I know there's lots of spots. I know it. I mean, there's this aura around it, and it's very interesting to go there. And,
I think maybe especially for Americans, because you guys have a whole history with Russia that maybe like a Canadian
history
doesn't have as much,
Yeah, definitely an ongoing history with Russia.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's like stuff like that. I mean, yeah, you're totally right too. It's like, I mean, I tell people I've been to Russia twice, and they're like, what? Like, why? Yeah. And it's like, well, it's actually, it's a cool place. Like I do think it's cool. I made some great friends over there. The people are amazing. I don't necessarily agree with the politics at all, but whatever.
There are two things. There's the politics, and then there's just the humans that live there.
Well, it's a lot like the US, like I tell all my friends in Europe, I'm like, no, don't let our leaders reflect on who we are, even though I know it is a reflection, but like there's great people here. But we don't need to go down the political aspect.
No.
Yeah, no, it's just, I think at that point it was like, seeking out, like I traveled to most places that you could in the United States, all over the East Coast, all through the Midwest, all through the West Coast. And I was like, okay, we're all through Canada. I mean, the only place I haven't hit street in Canada is in BC.
There's not much street there.
Yeah. So like, and then it was like, okay, what's next? Like, what's the next place? And then, obviously Finland is the next place. And then so you go do that. And it's like, okay, what's the next place? I mean, if I had stuck with it, I would have been in Kazakhstan for sure. I was always had my eyes on there. But just because I also really love traveling, and, I wasn't making a lot of money. So I had to use my resources to get me places. And that was cool. I mean, Japan was awesome. Although I still state this: don't go to Japan to ski street. Go to ski pow. Like, I've done
Yeah.
it. It's cool. Just go to ski pow. It's not worth it.
That's something let's go into that. Let's steer away from. We'll stay on the chronological thing that we're kind of doing right now.
Okay.
I like it. The year after last, it's Small World with Level 1.
Yeah.
And it opens up with what you just said, Japan trip for street, which I think was a big trend around that time. I don't know who started it, but there was a trend that maybe is still going today, of people going to Japan for only street trip. But and that's where you got some of your craziest shots. There's one that is like a down flat rail to 90-degree elbow down, flat down, that is insanely long.
Yeah. No, that was cool. That was actually that was a good day for me, because I got that shot, and I do a switch tails to switch on a big quad kink.
Yeah.
And
That was
I
the
did
same
that.
day?
That was within 2 hours of each other.
Wow. And which one
but
was first?
the elbow rail. I got that. It was just one of those days. I think I got that in like 6 tries, maybe more. Less than 15 will go there. And then the switch tails, that was pure luck. I got that 3rd try, but that was just because I jumped on at the right point, and then I was on for the ride,
Wow.
like, so that was a good day. And like, that was a super fun trip. Yeah, that was a cool experience, like getting to go. I mean, I felt that was awesome for me, because I was starting to like very much like, carve out my spacing industry as a rail skier. And so rail skiers don't get invited to Japan typically. And so the fact that I like got that opportunity, and so like, I did go ski street, but I also got to ski a lot of POW, was super cool.
Well, I think it always makes for some great segments. Like a couple of years before that, I think it was in Sunny. There was a street trip with Belmar and Wallish and one other skier. I'm forgetting. Hornbeck, Belmar, Wallish in Japan. And that was such a good segment.
Yeah, I think they were trying to recreate that one, honestly.
Yeah.
I think that was kind of the idea behind it.
And who were you playing? I'm kidding.
That was me, dude.
You were in the role of Tom Wallish, Khai Krepela.
Oh God, nobody can fill Tom's shoes, and he knows that.
Yeah.
There will never be another Tom Wallish. We'll say Will Berman was playing a mix of Belmar and Hornbeck.
Yeah. I love his shots in that segment. Like, he has a couple ones that are so sick, like a rooftop where he just front nose presses it. I don't know how you would even call it. Front flip out, but that is just so sick.
Dude, that was so funny.
Always loved this style.
Yeah, no, Chili's the best, and that was I loved that, because that, once again, like, talk about something that's out of his normal trick selection, is a nose manual front flip. It's like some real ski shit, but
yeah, or almost like the bunch.
Yeah, or like the bunch, but it was just like, at that point, like, it was cool, but it was like, it was full on goofing around, but a cool thing came out of it. But yeah, no, that was cool, and like such a mix of like, skiing POW to street, and like we had a cool crew. I mean, it was myself, LJ, Will Berman, and Will Wesson. And like, it was like such a cool combination, because people who were primarily street skiers or rail skiers getting their chance, and like everybody on that trip is like such a strong skier, so we were able to get some really good like POW stuff too. But like, definitely not like your normal crew you would bring on a POW trip, like not even close. But I mean, LJ's just an animal at skiing. He did like a 60-foot front flip off of a cliff in that segment, which is nuts.
Yeah, LJ is such a legend to me. Remember watching him in the late 2000s, where he would put on edits and parts with Meathead Films on the East Coast and have banger rail segments. But then also one year, Meatheads did a trip to Japan, and
Hmm.
that was Pow, and LJ was doing dubs out of big booters. It was like, damn, he can do it all. And yeah.
I sorry, you're hitting my ADD, but I love that segment because Meathead's whole thing was they did not film out of the East
Yeah.
Coast,
Yeah.
and
So
so
then they went far east.
they justified it as far East Coast. I was like, that's funny. Like I like it. I mean, Jeff and Rooster, those guys are good. That's yeah. I love that little like factoid. It's like it was the only time they ever shot out of the East Coast, and they just they really loopholed it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They always had such good movies where it wasn't the biggest park shoots. Like they had the whole segments where it was just like them skiing in a park. It was basically a park edit that was a segment, but it was just done in a way that was so enjoyable to watch. And that's where LJ and Will Wesson and Andy Perry got their minor league stamp of approval, let's say.
Dude, tons of people, Shay Lee or Shay Flynn, like a lot of those guys, like yeah, they all came out of that. It's kind of the same
Yeah,
thing as
Sean Jordan, Clayton Villa.
yeah, like that, and then they grouped up. It's kind of like Toy Soldiers, like it was like a place to like consolidate a little bit and like find
Yeah.
it, but it was like very like local crowd and build up the base like that. Super
Yeah.
cool.
So that's where you mentioned, kids, if you go to Japan, ski POW. You did that street trip, but then also filmed some POW there.
Yeah.
How was that, the whole POW filming? Maybe you had done some previous to that, but from what I've seen, it's street, park shoot. And then you're in Japan skiing POW.
So yeah, no, I mean you're totally right. Like I up until that point, I don't think I had ever filmed POW other than like me and my buddies when we were like teenagers
Yeah.
filming on whatever dad cam we had trying to do backflips.
Did you bring POW skis, or were you skiing on 90mm skis in the POW?
No, I brought POW skis. I mean, the funny thing is that like so many people have like assumed I'm either from like the East Coast or the Midwest, but like I grew up in Park City, Utah. Like like I grew up skiing POW and like doing that. And so not to say I'm the best, but like I had done it before, and like I always had POW sticks, and so I definitely brought it. But I mean, it was like I realized that like I'm good at skiing POW, but there's a difference between good at skiing POW and being good enough to be filmed skiing POW.
Yeah.
and like I got like a couple things, but like
well, there's a difference between, is your POW shot you doing a nice turn, or is it a cork 5 massive?
Yeah, anybody can do a slash. You can fake POW slashes really well, and I've done a number. I call them marks, marketing turns, but I've done a couple marks in my life because they're tried and true. But I think that's, if I remember right, I think I had like one little cliff drop, and then the rest of it's like a couple turns. It's like that. That's my POW career, which I wish I had gotten a little bit more of an opportunity to do that. But man, I'm so happy with how my career panned out.
Is it something you not you wish you could have done, but is it something you think that you could have done? You could have pulled off like a segment that is, let's say, half street, half backcountry stuff?
I think if I had dedicated a lot of time to learning more about freeride skiing,
Yeah.
I think I could have. I think I could have had a push in that area because I mean, as you know, like freeride skiing is kind of like freestyle skiing, where there's lots of different segments of it. You could be the trick freeride skier, you can be the big line freeride skier, you could be the technical freeride skier, and so I think I could have found my niche in that area. That like, because so much of it is footwork. Being so dialed on your feet on freeride, being able to pick your lines and I can pull a lot of like correlations. Like when it rails, it's like making sure that you land on the right spot, and then if you land there, you're gonna have it's gonna ride like this, or if you land here, it's gonna kick you off this way. So I think I could have had a good push. Would have I been the best? I have no idea, but I think I could have gotten a lot better at it.
It's something rare that we see in the backcountry that I think I could have seen you do, is when you insert some of a jibbing approach to backcountry that it's really niche. But I remember Mitchell Brower's Super Unknown. He does a big rock wall ride to switch, which is really like almost a park feature, but it's in the backcountry, And
Totally.
I think I would have seen a Kai do some stuff like that.
Yeah, I think that's probably when you're absolutely right. I would have like sought out features, just
Yeah.
like I do in street skiing. It's like it would have been like that's a cool thing I could do there. Like might not be the biggest or whatever, this or that, but it's very interesting. It's very
Hmm.
cool, and you can do something very smooth on it.
Yeah. Or
Um,
that's something that I also always appreciated from Sammy Carlson, where in his back to back to back to back wins of X Games Real Ski,
yeah.
he always had 2, 3, 4 shots that were not a backcountry jump in a classical sense. It was a weird tree jib that, it was more jibby than skiing,
Hmm.
which really made it cool and, creative, different, relatable to me as a park skier.
Absolutely. I mean, you know this, but you can always tell when somebody has a park background and they went into freeride. I mean, look at like Finn Bilowis, like how he skis the freeride world tour versus Max Hitzig.
Mhm.
Like same with like Sammy Carlson. I mean, he's the best to do it in my opinion when it comes to
Mhm.
like freeride, how he looks and finds those features. It's like it's just looking through that different lens, and then that goes back to it's like there's so many different ways to do it, and that's what makes it free ride. That's what's
Yeah.
not racing. There's only one way to do racing: be the fastest. Like that's the cool part about it. There's lots of different ways to do it.
Talking about going fast, that's another
Yeah.
thing that popped into my mind when watching you. I think one of the pro skier that people think of when going fast is Clayton Vila.
Mm-hmm.
There's that classic line in Mutiny where Charlie Owen says, "He's going fast, man, I'm telling you."
Mm-hmm.
But I think you're close second. There's so much shots through your segments that you're going fast in a feature approach where you're going to a six kink, but right before then you're jumping off a 30-foot gap across a street. And I think you have some racer blood in you.
Yeah, I don't know. Honestly, it's kind of one of those things where I learned a lot long time ago. The faster you go, the faster the end of the rail comes. So,
Mm,
it's almost like, in my opinion, it made it easier. And I thought it just looked better too. Like it looks better with speed.
yeah.
So like to me, I was like a no brainer. It's like, oh, if I go faster, it's not only easier, but it looks better. Like let's do that. you know.
Yeah.
Um, and especially, I always thought it looked so cool. I mean, my last segment, which I know we're trying to go chronological, but that was like my intention is to have it look fast. I want everything to have movement and look like it was quick and fast, like kind of like skate style. Like how they do it. Yeah,
We're doing it chronological, but let's make it a challenge for people to keep track.
yeah,
In that
perfect.
that last segment in romance, we'll do a whole turnaround. But in that segment in romance, I think you also have the longest rail slide ever done in street skiing. You think?
I don't know if I would. Maybe it's not as
Or
long as you think. It's really
no?
not.
Okay.
No. Um,
Well, let's just say in the top echelon, like that shot is insane.
it's a
The
cool
way it's
shot.
filmed, the way it's panning, the way you don't move, your feet move a bit like to balance out, but you stay really chill. It's
Hmm.
such an insane shot.
I got some. We can get to it, but I got some fun factoids about that shot. It's
Tell
it's a
me. Tell me.
well, one the shot that actually made it is it that was supposed to be a cut shot. Um,
That's always what happens. That's always what happens.
yeah, because I had gotten it once before, and I went to forward, and so like we're like, oh, sick, we got it. Like, I also feel kind of bad because to a degree, spot jack that from Will Weston because he's the one who put in the work to find it. But say la vie. But yeah, so we wanted to film a cut shot, and it ended up being that just with how I think it was Jeff Constam who filmed it, but how he filmed it and like, oh no, it was Alex Havey. Yeah, whatever. Um, how they filmed it with that like pan out and that zoom and like how it exposed the whole rail. It just like, yeah, it just made it look so cool. And then taking it to switch and that was cool. I've always said like if I ever go hit another spot, it will be that spot again, which is not likely, but that would be like the one spot I'd go hit again because it was so much fun.
Because you have a trick in mind or just because it was fun?
I think I think, and maybe not anymore because I'm old as shit, but I think I could backslide it.
Wow.
And who knows? Maybe this is just some fucking lore I have in my head, but I think I could. Maybe not anymore, but at my peak, I think I could.
Where is it?
Can't tell you that.
No. It's in
I
the
can I can
States.
I can tell you that. I can't tell the world that.
Okay, tell me, I'll cut it off.
Uh,
Okay. That
yeah,
yeah, that's random.
yeah. People know about it. There's some people who know about it, especially because there was that same year. I think it was it Joe Sexton. Uh, he did a whole piece around it because he had been trying to 50-50 it for like 2 years, and he got it the same year that Will and I got it, and they made a whole like article around it
Mm.
and this whole thing, and then I kind of feel bad for the guy. Then like we come through and get 2 shots on it. And it's a cool shot, it's memorable, but it's not a big story.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, when you talk about cutoffs, it makes me think about on my end filming where these last few years it's always been a one filmer crew. So if we get a trick, then it's like, hey Matt, you want to do it again? So we get an in run shot. And
Yep.
then I have a problem with him these days of how I approach the in run shot because I want to capture the landing also because sometimes he'll get it even better. And I'm like, fuck, dude. I didn't do the in run shot so you could get it better. Like, then
Yeah, dude.
that's a whole strategy into filming street because if we do a cutaway, it's because you just got your shot. But
Hmm.
if you got your shot, that also means you're in your rhythm. So who
Yeah.
says you're not getting it another time or even better?
Yeah, your chances just went up. You just learned a lot. Now you're gonna do it better, and it's funny how that shit
Or
works.
all the pressure or frustration that might have come from how many tries you were doing it, now it's all gone. Now you're
Hmm.
free.
It's true. I never thought about it like that. Yeah, it's like all of a sudden the weight's been lifted and you're just
Yeah.
clear headed again.
Yeah.
You know.
In those years after Small World in 2016, there was pleasure. And
Hmm.
I don't know, people might like it or not like it. I could see both sides, but I thought it was funny the kind of little concepts they did with pleasure where there's a narrator and trying to make it different, trying to make it funny. And then it
Hmm.
introduces a couple people in your segment like Jonah and LJ, and then it comes to you and says, Khai Krepela, Art Throb, and Rail God.
Hmm.
So at that point, you had the Rail God persona stamped with Art Throb. I don't know if that's if you were getting it done in the streets, but
I what can I say? Um, yeah, I had the rail. I'll start with I had the rail god that came from Jason Aaron's, um,
shout
and
out Jason.
yeah, such a good guy, and I didn't smoke, and so he thought it was funny to call me Rail God 420, because it put out this idea that I was a stoner, and I wasn't, and just that's our whole relationship. It's just
Felt like felt like you guys were in a big trolling vibe in those years. You and Jason and Good Enough.
huge. We're still in it. Like maybe not like outside of our group, but like we all just spend 4th of July together, and like we didn't even leave the backyard. Like we were just like talking smack to each other, trolling each other, like the entire time. We still call Garrett Jurich, or the filmer, for Good Enough. Like he has 1,000 nicknames, like Garrett, Lizard, Larry. Like, but that's just like what we do, and that's how our relationship's always been. So he made that nickname for me, and it really stuck,
Nice.
in a very funny way, because the people who knew the joke thought it was funny, and then the people who didn't thought it was just funny because they thought I was a stoner. Um, and then I don't know, heartthrob. Yeah, girls thought I was cute.
We can branch off into that, which I think people know you from level one, know you from being a rail god for 20, all that. But you also, I think a big part of your persona was the good enough crew, right?
Mm-hmm.
With you guys making edits, and I feel like you had a good balance personally, talking about you, of having those year-long projects where you were serious about it, not going to a street spot to goof around. You were trying to get a dope shot and make a dope segment, but then you had the complete opposite, going in the park with Good Enough, and it's just you guys were making dope edits that were fun to watch, but it wasn't about doing the best edit. It was just a group of friends really fucking around, that you could have the silliest music and not necessarily trying to do the best tricks, just trying to do something that was enjoyable to watch. And I think it was really dope because it was past the prime era of ski edits.
Mm-hmm.
So it was at a time where there were less, and you guys were just churning them all year.
All the time. Yeah, we had a lot of focus into them. Yeah, dude, that was that was the fun stuff. And it's kind of funny because like, yeah, we're talking about, and I appreciate you bringing it up because like, not that I do these podcasts all the time, but good enough never gets brought up. Um, and to this day, it's like I filmed with Level One, I filmed with all these guys, but if somebody asks what my crew is, it's good enough. Like that's like that's where I'm from. Those are my best friends in the world. And we always we had this whatever method that was like, let's make some stuff that we think is cool and funny, because you've watched them. Some are strange, like they have weird concepts, but we're like, if we like them, maybe somebody else will. Like, we would get a couple sponsors that would pay us enough to like go to Brian Head Resort and like just these random areas. And it was so much fun because, yeah, it was like low pressure. Like, sure, we wanted to put out stuff that was good and entertaining, but it was like, that was just our crew. It was just like going around and skiing with your best friends. Like, it was so much fun. Such a good,
I think it's something that's been rare in skiing, where people naturally go the way I went and the way you went with Toy Soldier. Is you have a crew and then you shoot for the stars. Mm-hmm. I will make an official movie, and I'll sell it on DVD at the time, or whatever is relevant today, and I will. But you guys were really kind of realistic about it. Like, yeah, no, we're not trying to go for the moon. We're just buddies trying to do park edits, and that's the end of it.
Yeah, that's what it was. And I think, like that's just what it was for us. And we learned a lot through that. And like, it's kind of funny because if you start to that crew, we've gone to like, ended up being a pretty big deal in like the skiing industry, but I don't think no kids know it because no kids have ever heard of Good Enough. But like, Jason pretty much is the ruler of all judging in skiing. Pete is an announcer for X Games. Like, Noah did the engineering for surface skis, and he's also a rocket scientist. Like, and like Garrett's still making videos. Good Enoughs are still coming out. Like there's all this stuff, and it's just like, that crew ended up being pretty influential just for a bunch of like shitheads going around and like listening to Waka Flocka, and like we were so dumb, but it was so good. We still talk our like own language if people get around us. They're like, you guys are idiots.
But one thing I was curious to learn about Good Enough is what was your thoughts on welcoming River Downing in the crew?
Oh yeah. I don't know even that is, we'll finally out River Downing. It's me. God, it's gonna be so hard for anybody to know the relevance of this at all.
Okay, so just to put people in context, I tell Jason I'm having you on. He's hyped because you're his friend. Yeah. I tell him what I'm about to talk about with you. He's like, yeah, that covers it all. And I tell him, let me know if there's something I'm missing. And he says, he sends me a video and he says, ask him about River Downing. And it's basically a good enough edit where it's baggy Khai to some Waka Flocka doing some park, and it's awesome.
Yeah. So the background is I have a really long name. My full name is River Khai Charles Downing Krepela.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, so River Downing is like legally my name as well, as much as Khai Krepela is. But we just had this funny concept of like, because I was always kind of in the tight pants area and stuff, and so we're like, what if we did the opposite and made this like super thugged out skier, never showed face. We got close to the point of like trying to get him sponsors, but I thought that could really complicate things for me if it got out, so we stopped doing it. But yeah, it's funny because we went to like, he has a Facebook page. His birthday is 420, and so every year it pops up as like River Downing's birthday, and that's just such an explanation of just, we were just being dumb young guys and just funny stuff. But yeah, that was fun. Yeah, River Downing, shout out. He just got out the pen.
So do your parents call you River? What's the...
Nope.
Okay.
No, yeah, it's a whole thing. My assumption is that because my mom's a bit of a hippie,
yeah,
and my dad had it in him a little bit, but I think I was born at home near a river, and so my mom wanted to name me River, and so my assumption is like, my dad's like, yeah, sure, but we're calling him Khai, and so I've always just been Khai, And sorry, I got a text a little bit. I'm mid work day, so I'm also doing stuff.
I think what's cool with River Downing, and it makes me think of what Steve Stepp was doing with the trolling. And before that, they had the guacamole Sundays. Was that it? With
Yeah.
4x9. I always love those kind of trolling edits where there's so much seriousness in the ski edits, which I love. I'm a fan of just doing the best edits you can, but it's also nice to just fuck around and do complete edits where you're not giving a fuck.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like that doesn't, I mean, maybe I'm not super tied in with like the, like that side of like the film world, but I feel like that kind of trolling, goofing around, just making funny, weird, whatever, like stuff. I'll give everybody out there a good one to go find is the Orange Mocha Frappuccino Mammoth Edit with Steve Stepp and Tom Wallish. That's a good one. But yeah, people are just messing around and having fun.
Yeah. Old Mammoth edit from '07 with Wallish and Steve Stepp before they were known.
Yeah, way before they were known.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's like people are just doing stuff like that, and it's like it's kind of a bummer that we've lost a little bit of that. It's like, like that was such like a staple in skiing. It's just like
Yeah.
all it's like being cool, but like, dude, there's like this goofy side to everybody. And it's like, yeah, you can be goofy, like be weird, be funny. Like, it doesn't make you any less cool.
You know who I think still has that in a way, in the own modern way, is Mete. Because if you
Yeah.
follow him on social media, he's always like trolling or having a weird caption or posting something random where you can see he has that in him.
Yeah. I've run into him once or twice and I watched his stuff and I'm like, yeah, he's got that to him. And it's the thing, cause he's like the coolest skier out, right? Like his like actual tricks are like the steeziest and like creative, but then you gotta have that goofy side, man. You got it. You got to have some fun with it. We're gonna, not here forever. But yeah, dude, that's cool. That's funny that you brought up River Downing, man. That's a blast from the past.
I'll post it on the Instagram so people can see Baggy Kai.
Oh, dude, but you can't let them know it's me. You just gotta let it live on as River Downing.
Okay. And one thing that I thought was cool watching that edit is the River Downing one as a joke with you being baggy is it really highlights how in your career you were mostly with the tight pants setup. You weren't a baggy guy. And I think it's such a testament to how composed you were and stylish because you have way less space when you rock that style. Like if you're a bit loose, it shows so much with that style. And yeah, I think you're one of the guys who rocked it the best in that era where there never was that many skiers rocking it, but you made it look good.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. But yeah, it was one of those things. I always thought it was going to take off and never did. It was always counterculture. Always counterculture. I mean, there was like Anthony Pronowski is probably the most notable, but then like John Hartman, Ian Wade, Blake
Max
Nyman,
Hill.
Max Hill. Yeah, Max Hill definitely high up there. But yeah, there just wasn't very many. Like there was a big counterculture, and it was a strong counterculture, but it definitely didn't pop off. Not like Hesh snowboarding did. Like that was the craze in snowboarding, but yeah, it was cool. I mean, Corey Vanduler went through a short period of it too.
Yeah. Back in the, what was it called? The Sean Pettit thing.
Kids, or I know kids or Superproof.
Superproof. That was dope. Also, when we talk about a blip in time, like with Toy Soldier, Superproof was doing dope stuff with Lee Powis and all the guys involved, and it was like short-lived, a couple of years.
Yeah, the stuff they put out was really good. I was, not to talk smack, but I always thought it was funny because they incorporate a lot of acting into their movies. Like a lot of acting.
Going super conceptual, which kudos to them for trying. But I'm more referring to, it was really well filmed, really well edited, super good skiing. I remember Corey had like a comeback segment.
Yeah, no, everything they put out was amazing. Yeah, like and like what the production value of that was like incredible. It was like untouched,
Yeah,
like,
and so, not because they had $1 million budget, just because they were so good at their craft.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, but the BC has like such a talented community up there, like from skiers to filmers to sledders, everything. Like they're just, strangely creative for being way up in the woods.
But there's so many people that move out there from Ontario and Quebec. Anyone who's passionate about skiing ends up moving there because That's our, in the States, you can move to Colorado or Utah or Mammoth, or, I feel like there's
Yeah.
more places where if you're Canadian, it's BC. Yeah, there's Alberta, but, it's mostly
Yeah,
BC.
but yeah, you go to BC, yeah,
Yeah.
for the most part. Cool,
One
man.
year that I was curious to have your thoughts on, I've talked about it with a bunch of people through the years who've done it, is real ski. Um,
Yeah.
you got invited to real ski in 2017, which was their second year, which
Hmm.
meant you were a big dog at that point because there's only 6 skier invited. There's some that come back because they won gold the year before, and I think maybe also the fan favorite came back, so maybe it was just 4 new.
Yeah.
And then they also had a big backlog of legends that they needed to invite because they had never done it. It was only the second year, so needing to invite Phil or Will Wesson or a Matt or Hornbeck, and just being invited, it feels like, or it felt, is just that is a huge honor. It means you are one of the top dogs in the game.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, just like, yeah, the fact, especially getting invited in the second year, like that was like a big deal. Like that made me feel like I was like, oh shit, like I'm a player, like, um, because in that year it was myself, Will, Tom, LJ, Henrik, and Magnus, and like, I feel like out of that crew, myself and Magnus were really the only two like new kids on the block. And so
Mhm.
like to just be like to even like starting at the beginning, like feel like my name would be on a list with the rest of those guys was like such an honor, and it was so cool and like such a cool opportunity. I mean, definitely like, oh my God, it was the biggest struggle of my skiing career for sure. But like just getting invited, like that's why I definitely didn't even come close to winning that event. I'm proud of what I put out, but like it's what the accomplishment it is for me to have participated, especially in that second year with the
Mhm.
roster. It was like, this is cool. Like I feel like that's when I really felt like I'm like, okay, my name is like, it's not like my name's gonna live on like a Wallish or a Henrik, but like my name will live on as like a notable person.
Yeah.
I will leave a slight legacy behind in the ski world.
Yeah.
Which and that was the first like proof I had of it, and it was
Yeah.
really cool.
And you said you weren't close to winning, and I think that's maybe something that's a bummer, or maybe that you were ready for at that point with how many years you had done street, knowing that you can't control when spots will go your way or not go your way, and there's so many factors, both you as a skier, but also the weather, the snow being kicked out. There's so many stuff that can prevent you from getting what you want,
Mm-hmm.
but you still got something that's more than respectable, like super good stuff that if you're not looking at it as a comp, just as a segment in its own, it's super good.
Totally, and that's why I'm so proud of what I put out. Like there's no like I don't feel bummed or embarrassed or anything. I'm very proud of what I put out, especially for like shout out to Jacob Callahan, who was my filmer. It was the first time we had ever worked together, and like it was not easy for us. Like we had every trouble. The biggest one being that we had a piece of shit winch that just like would break every time we use it. Like the best shot I would have had in that, we ended up not getting because the winch broke. Like
What was it?
it was this cool like it was a down rail, but it was off of this wall, and I there was like these barriers, and I did this big lip slide, like I don't know, probably 20 feet from the lip to the rail, like lip slide up and down. And it was all lining up. And then the winch chain broke, and it was Christmas the next day. And so we had to wait until we could find a go-kart place to find the chain to fix it. And by that time rain had come and melted it all out. And
Damn.
like it was just a struggle, and like running out of money because like I definitely had no money in my account. I mean, the kid running the winch was somebody I found off of Instagram who didn't even ski. His buddy who was a skier told him about it, and then he came and ran the winch for us. Like we were scrappy, and it was just difficult. I it was so challenging that I like really debated on quitting street skiing after that, just because of like how mentally draining it was. Luckily, Tom, that Finland trip with Tom and Hornbeck and Nicholas Eriksson came right after that, and that was probably the most fun trip I've ever been on. So it like fully rejuvenated me, but like it was a struggle. And then, then also add on the fact that I'm competing with that roster, like the stress that put me through. I was like, dear God, because on the same point of like feeling like I was honored to be invited, I also knew that there was a long list of people out there that were like, what the fuck, he got invited, like, and so I felt I had to prove something.
You think so, or you heard so?
I'm trying to remember if I had heard anything. I don't think I ever really heard anything. I think,
Okay.
fortunately for me, I've always been pretty well liked in the industry. So even if people had those opinions, they kept them to themselves. At least like, amongst like other pro skiers that maybe felt like they should have been invited. They weren't going to come and like attack me.
After Pleasure, Small World, Less, Tracing Skylines, Burn, Act Natural, you kind of
Yeah.
earned it.
No, for sure. I'm not saying that, but like, there was a lot of other people out there that I feel like also could have been on
Yeah.
that list, and it wouldn't have been surprising,
Yeah,
And
that
so,
was the problem at that time, being like, some people were saying, "Oh, Dom Laporte should have been invited because he had been filming Street Forever, and at that point, it was right after his back-to-back years with Tabarnak where he was absolutely killing it."
mhm.
But then it's like, yeah, Dom is killing it, but there's a list of 25 people waiting also. So
Yeah, and like that's the hard part. But yeah, just like that whole thing, it was just so stressful. And then, as you know, and I'm sure it's been said on this, but like, you get invited in like August, and then like, oh, but you need to be done second week of January. And it's like, all right, so we got like 2.5 months until snow comes.
yeah.
And then we gotta hope it's good. And then it was just like, it's a stressful experience.
Yeah,
But
you're
cool.
asked to do your best street part ever in what is basically a third of the time you would usually have.
Yeah, and
If
not
not
even in the
less.
time and not in the time of the year that you would even shoot. Like normally for my street parts, I wouldn't start shooting until like mid-January, where snow started becoming consistent,
Mm.
So like, but it like with anything, like you're given an opportunity, you take it and you do as best as you can. And I think Jacob Callahan and I, like, for all the hurdles that we had to do, and same with all the other guys, like it's incredible what you can put out, if it's just like you just put your mind to it. It's not easy. It's never easy. Nobody has an easy time doing that. And so that's why it's even more impressive. Like kids don't even realize like how impressive some of those parts that come out, like how good they are. Like it's insane because they're better. I'd say 9 times out of 10 they're better than regular street parts that come out, but that's just because they light the fire under you. You're like, you got to do it right now, you know?
So we're getting close to 2 hours. I want to talk about the business stuff, but before we get into that, one last thing about all the great things that you've done is you've been a part for many years also of the most successful web series of all time, that is Line Traveling Circus. And
Mm-hmm.
you didn't make it happen. You joined it while it was already its own thing. You were on Surface for many years, and then in the later years of your career, you were with Line.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to talk about that with you because I'm sure you were a fan also. You knew those guys, but how was it for you hopping on the traveling circus? We've talked about Good Enough, where you were more trolling or having fun. Your parts where
Yeah.
you were serious. How's traveling circus?
Traveling circus was so much fun because it was probably that blend between Good Enough and like Level 1, where like I was that I saw an opportunity where like if I do good tricks, I will get noticed, I will get good exposure. But then it's also, as everybody knows, Traveling Circus's whole thing is being weird and different and stuff. So getting hooked up with those guys, I'm even trying to remember exactly how it happened because it kind of just happened so naturally. I remember the first time I saw them skiing, I didn't know Andy, and I was like all intimidated by him. And then all of a sudden, the next year, I was skiing with him, and I'm gonna do some thinking. I can't even remember exactly how it happened, but ended up getting really close with those guys and traveling around with them. Going to Colorado. It was like the first trip I did with them when I was still on Surface, and it was like so much fun because like it was trying real stuff, but in a goofy way, real stuff. It's like how many swaps on this rail can I do? Like it's technically hard, but it's a little goofy,
One episode that I have in mind with you, I didn't go back through Traveling Circus because of time constraints and
Yeah, there's so many.
whatever the reasons. But one I have in mind is when they did a half pipe with tubes, and I'm pretty sure you were in that one, right?
Yeah.
Just early season goofing around, wood frame. They build a actual half pipe going up and down both ways, and you were part of that.
Yeah, that was cool. I actually I had the closer shot in that because everybody got the half pipe rail, but I got it the best. Like my shot was like the most like actual like up, down, and down. But yeah, that was fun, and that was kind of like it was my in my experience, especially with that one, because it was you and your buddies going in the backyard and building rail on steroids. It was like a half pipe rail and a square rail, like just like it was anything we could do, and getting linked up with like Will and Andy, where like that's just how their brains work. It like got me working in such a different way. But yeah, that half pipe rail, I remember that one. That's when Shane McFalls was still filming it, but we dubbed over. I think it was a David Wise like announcer run to it. It's just like stuff like that, like goofy, like kind of making fun of the industry, but at the same time, like doing impressive stuff in the meantime. Ended up doing really cool stuff with those guys. Like, went all over with them. I went to Russia with them once, which is a very funny trip in its own right.
And when you go, again, to go back to the financials of the ski industry, when you went in 2018, it's out of your pocket, you get into debt. There's a big pressure of making a street part that's legit because it's for a film. Whereas I guess you're just out there having fun because you're going to goof around in a park. And I guess the outlook must be so much more enjoyable.
Yeah, and it's just a lot less serious. Like you still want to ski well. Like, yeah, like one, like if it was a traveling circus trip, it was paid for, like maybe there'd be some funds or whatever, but like, yeah, it was a lot less serious. And then it was just going and skiing a park, and when you're a street skier, it's like a park is like, that's a bad pun, but it's a walk in the park. Like it's literally so easy. And like all of a sudden the rail's perfect and you can ski fast and the laps are easy. And it's when you hit the ground, it's not concrete. And so it just becomes a lot more enjoyable. Like, yeah, there is some fun times. So also some really frustrating times for sure. I can tell you, and I'm sure Will and Andy will attest to this, but we have all been at each other's throats multiple times.
How so, or why?
I mean, just imagine it's like a mini family of just brothers who drive around in a stinky van in sub-zero temps. Like tensions just can run high at times,
Yeah, but it's the same in the streets, but with stress added on, and I've never had that much. There's kind of a brotherly thing in street where you're all in the fight together.
Yeah.
If the comparison makes any sense.
And I think it's maybe the fact that they've been doing it for 15 years.
They're stuck in it. Line won't let them quit.
Oh man. I hope they never quit. It'd be awesome. I mean, now Andy's a dad. So we'll see how that goes. I'm waiting for Jake to get home because Jake, my roommate, for those who don't know, is now the Line Traveling Circus filmer. So I'm excited to see what their plans are for this year.
And has been for many years, like the past 6-7 years, if not more.
I feel like even longer. Yeah, I can't remember exactly the first year, but it's been a while. It's been a long time.
So let's get into business, Mr. River.
Yeah. Let's hit it.
You had a super successful career in your own right until your last film appearance was Romance, if I'm not mistaken.
No, that's correct.
And then there was a weird year in 2020 that we don't have to get too into deep with that, but kind of fucked up the ski industry and the world.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, you transitioned, and again, to complete the parenthesis, you were not making Tom Wallish money. You were making it happen, but knowing you're a smart guy, knowing that you're not going to do that until you're 40, you ended up working at K2 as a marketing guy, running the team, running a bunch of stuff. How did that come about?
So I'll even kind of step back for a second. We'll talk about 2020 a little bit. So
no, I'm kidding. I'm
I
kidding.
I won't go too much into it, but so what ended up happening is like, the final, well, what was supposed to be the final level 1 movie happened, and I was 28 at the time. Realize, I had been running my family's landscaping business because I had been working through this entire thing. So I had a lot of management experience, and I decided to leave. And, I kind of saw the writing on the wall. It's like, I had fun in my career. It wasn't paying me enough to like really pay the bills and especially not retire. And so I was like, okay, it's time to start figuring out a career path. So I always wanted to go marketing, but I just started shooting my resume off everywhere I could, and somehow ended up as a retail store manager for Black Diamond equipment. So I did that for a number of years, and that was really just, the reason I wanted to talk about this is because like I get asked a lot from people is like, how did you transition? And I always like to tell them it's like, it's not clean. I didn't just like leave my ski career and get into a good job.
Yeah.
I started as an assistant manager. I worked my way from that quickly up to a store manager, worked my butt off, ended up having one of the most profitable retail, Black Diamond retail stores in the world, with like a lot of hard work, and kind of was able to like leverage that. And that was a bit of a nightmare of a job because of the management at the time, but leverage that into a position where K2 was going through kind of this like growing period, and they had put this guy at the helm, Tom Johnson, who was overseeing. He was the director of marketing for both ski and snowboard, and he was looking for a very specific person in the in the industry to run it. He wanted somebody who had deep ties in the industry, specifically with athletes, had an understanding of like kind of like the core, but like also understood the consumer market. And my name was floating around the office because I had actually applied for a line position. I can't even remember what the position was titled, but I was offered it, but I turned it down because it wasn't paying enough to the point where I felt like I could comfortably survive. And so that had my name floating around the office. And so Tom Johnson, 2 months into trying to find somebody, my name popped up. And so he called me and he's like, hey, would you be interested? And somehow, I think I've said it, but I consider myself to be a very lucky person that snowballed into my first marketing job in the industry, being senior marketing manager of global K2 skis. Psycho. Crazy. And that was super cool because, I got to leverage all my experience. I knew specifically a ton about the athlete side, but, I knew a lot about the film side. And more importantly, like kind of like my pitch to get hired was that I always knew that I wasn't the best skier, but I realized at an early age how important it was to build your brand. And so, like you can be good, you can be appealing and all this stuff, but if you are not consistent in your marketing and your brand, then people aren't going to catch on to it. And that's kind of was my pitch is it's like, listen, like I might not have this marketing experience from like a job, quote unquote, but I have it from my own personal life, and they really like that. And I was able to come on and be part of like the new launch of like what K2 skis was going to be. There was a lot of new leadership going on at the time, and it was really amazing. It was a crazy experience. I mean, I have tons to say about it because like you would be surprised on the amount of people running K2 specifically. It is not very many people. And yeah, it was a cool experience. I learned a lot.
Well, I think that's a good point you touch on regarding the ski industry in general with ski films or ski businesses where people think you're living a luxurious lifestyle, but when you're going to Russia, you're paying it and you're going into debt. Or they think that level 1 is 25 people when in fact it's maybe 3 people at a certain point. Same thing applies for everything where it's really smaller than it seems. It's really more human sized than it seems. Even though there are, let's say K2 sells thousands of skis around the world. Yeah, that's with a distributor and it goes to retailers that are separate, but with core businesses, it's smaller than what it appears.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I always kind of laugh when people would talk about like K2 being like the big brother, it's like, oh, the corporate, and like, yeah, it's corporate. That's no denying it. But, even though I eventually down the line got laid off, and there's some not a lot of bitterness, but a little bitterness there. But I will always say it's like the people running the show are people like you and I, like there's such brilliant people at the helm trying to push it forward. And so I always found it very funny when people are like, oh, the corporate K2 just trying to take all the money. It's like, these are just, it's just a ski company, guys. Like, sure, there's a big parent company, but it's a ski company. Like there's people there like, Julia White, Brad Walters, the whole engineering staff. Like it's just like they're real diehard skiers who care about the industry. And so like I always like to give them a really good shout out, because it's like, you get a lot of flack for being one of the big dogs, one of the big players, but it's like it's still run very similarly to a small ski company, And so I just want to give credit where credit's due.
And great to put into perspective what you saw from the inside that people don't really see or know.
Yeah.
What was more maybe surprising to you? Because we always have big perspectives, like people hating on judging, or I'm someone who have hated on judging in the past, and now that I'm in it, I see it completely differently. And
Mm-hmm.
same thing you see when you're a kid, you see someone doing street and you judge them like, oh, why didn't do a better trick? And then you get in the streets and get humbled and realize it's not that easy. How was it getting into the corporate side from someone who's been a ski fan, but also a ski pro?
Mm-hmm.
How was it? And what was kind of your change in perspective as how to things actually go? And maybe also, cause my question is not long enough. You being a park and street skier, and then having to deal with a brand like K2 where they sponsor and appeal to every type of skier.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I mean, I'll start with what I think is like kind of like like when I got to see behind the curtains, like from my perspective, what did I realize? And I think the biggest thing, I mean, starting on a personal level, is one, I always kind of went around thinking I was underpaid. Thinking like I'm a big dog, I'm skiing, I got invited to X Games, all this stuff, and I was like, I have marketing power. Then looking behind the curtain and realizing it's like I did, to a very, very, very small community. It was very strong marketing power, but it wasn't wide. And so that was kind of an interesting thing to put into perspective. And going back to that thing, it's not about how good you are, it's about how many people care. And so it's like, it kind of was in like that. And then I had a new perspective of like how my career went as far as like paychecks, and had a bit more respect for the people I was dealing with. I still think I was a little underpaid, but not like grossly. And then, also just, I think from the business side is like, with like appealing from one small community to a broad community. Cause it's like P-skis, general consumers, freeride. Freeride was the main focus. And that's kind of where I learned a lot about brand consistency and how important that is, because people, they want it to be appealing to them, but they also want to be buying into something that's bigger than themselves. And so if you don't have a consistency in who you are, then people will never see themselves as part of like your crew, your collective. And I take that into like every point of life. And the same with like judging. It's like judging has to be consistent. Otherwise there's nothing to like leap off of. And that's when it really starts to unravel,
Mm-hmm.
It's like, you got to head in direction. Some people are going to think it's the wrong direction, that you'll never stop that, but it has to be pointed and consistent. And that's something that I really like learned once I looked behind. It's not just like when in like from the perceptive, or from the angle of like athletes, is like when I was building up the K2 team, I wasn't just looking for good, cause like there was times like certain names would come up, like big names. I won't throw anybody under the bus. And I ended up talking with people, and like their reach was amazing, but they didn't fit the brand. Putting them on made it inconsistent. And that's kind of one thing I dealt with at K2, is rebuilding it, is like, you have to have a consistency. So when people think about you, I think the place that does it the best is Armada. When you think of their pro team, you think of a certain type of skier, and they're good. And like, there's different facets in there of them, but they've done a good job of, it's like, you have to fit the Armada DNA in order to be on our crew. And that was something, is like building at the K2 team, is like, I realized, I'd have people be like, I'm so good, and like be like, that's great, but you don't fit our DNA, so I don't want you, even if we could get you.
Do you think it's harder these days to have a brand DNA that's solid with a brand like K2, let's say, where they sponsor skiers that from all sides of the sport? Maybe 15 years ago, a big dog skier who was on K2, like I'm thinking PK Under, or there's other, I'm trying to find an example of someone who did it all. Let's say 15 years ago, someone could have a segment with street, with a park shoot, be at X Games, like do everything so they could represent all sides of K2. But do you think it's harder these days for someone doing the job you were doing, when there's a Keegan, but he only does street, and there's a comp skier, but he only does comps, and there's a POW skier, and he only does POW? So it's like, as a brand, you want to appeal to all those sides, but also each skier is like stuck in their niche a bit.
Yeah, well, and that's a great point. And that, honestly, it's not necessarily like the genre that I'm talking about. Like,
Okay.
it's not necessarily like, I mean, sure, we focused on bringing on freeride skiers. That was it. But I also brought on Keegan during my time, and that's because I believe he fit the DNA, and like,
having a homogenous branding with skiers that are doing completely different stuff from each other.
But how I would kind of reflect that is that I don't see a huge difference between Sam Kutch and Keegan Kilbride, even though what they do is so different.
Right.
Who they are personally, how they approach it, the style behind it, and that's kind of what I mean by the DNA. They could be doing totally different things, but they still fit that image, and that's like, one, pushing the boundary, but in an original way. It's like they're doing it in their own way. Like, it's undeniably them. You'll watch them do it, and you're not thinking that, oh wow, that looks like someone else, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I mean. And that got a little more challenging, when I was trying to like pick up an extra racer. That's a really hard thing to fill, but that's kind of what it taught me, is just like, is learning how to like decide, one, on what that means, and then seek it out and find it in the industry. And I'm currently building that out through with Hinterland skis, which I know we'll get to eventually. But like, it's building that brand consistency, whether that be in the assets you develop, the product you develop, the athletes that you support. It's everything. It has to all be super in line. It has to be very in line and consistent, so that the storytelling is digestible.
Was there anything that surprised you, or that wasn't exactly what you thought of before being on the brand side? Meaning, as a viewer, as a skier, maybe you think, oh, what brands care about is a film segment, or what they care about is my Instagram, or what they care about is my YouTube videos, and maybe what they care about is something completely different.
Yeah, no. I totally get what you're saying. And it's going to be different for each person, for each brand, each, because there's going to be brands out there that it's just like, oh, we want you creating viral content. And that, I think that's one thing that surprised me about it, is like, to a degree, it's kind of, and sorry, I'm going to go on ADD rant, but like, it's like the same thing as like somebody who graduates with a degree and somebody who learned it through experience. They're going to have two different ways to approach it. The one graduating with the degree has a chronological X, Y, and Z. This is the correct answer. And that doesn't exist in life. That's a great place to start. And so it's really up to whatever that brand is. If you're Pit Viper, making viral content is the way to go. That is how you get to where you need to go. It's entertaining, it's loud, it's in your face, and that's how you get it. If you are somebody trying to sell, a lifestyle, more like luxurious or, mature or whatever, we'll put like a Rolex. It's not about being viral. It's about telling that story. It's about having impactful pieces and sparking something. And so it's like, there's many different ways. And that was something that I found interesting, because I was so concerned coming on that, like, I was like, what if I don't do it the right way? What if I don't know how to do it the right way? And then I realized that the right way is subjective based on where you are. And so you learning to be like flexible and curious and honestly not stubborn, that you know the right way, is like the most valuable piece that I've taken into my professional life, is just being flexible. And like the real talent comes in being able to like look at the landscape and adjust to it, not think that you have all the answers.
You know what you're talking about? Building a street park.
Yeah.
It's corny, but that's it.
Yeah.
Like, there's a way of building a street park, but also one from B-Dog or Wallish or yourself is not the same. Being flexible, going about, there are variables you control, there's other you don't control. You got to be adaptable and just figure it out.
Totally. And like, it's, yeah, you can have a plan that it's going to go this way, and 9 times out of 10, it's not going to go that way. And so it's what you do after that's what really counts. I'm going through it right now. Like I built out a whole marketing go-to-market plan for Hinterland, and a lot of it's going to plan and a lot of it is not. And it's about switching, because that's what you have to do.
So are you going front swap or back swap?
We're going back swap. We're going back swap for sure. Because we're trying to go in an area that I won't say it's undiscovered, but it's definitely not heavily sought after by a lot of the big C companies. Which we're going after the luxury market. We're going. I'll give the Hinterland pitch, but
tell me about it. I think that's a great segue into the different sides of the ski industry, because you've been with Surface for so long. You were their main face for a while. You were with Line, then worked for K2, and now got a new job at Hinterland.
Hinterland, yeah. Hinterland.
That's always something I have a hard time with you English guys. Do you say the T or not? Do you say mountain or do you say mountain?
It depends on where you are. I'm from Utah. You don't. You say mountain, kitten, mitten. But
Hinterland.
Hinterland it's a German word, so you're supposed to say the T. Okay. But everybody ends up saying Hinterland.
Is it another one of your middle names?
It is not one of my middle names. No, it is German word for the space beyond. Okay. I was brought on to Hinterland Skis in February as the chief marketing officer to kind of help build out marketing plan, also head of sales, and recently in the past month and a half I've been promoted to chief executive officer. So I'm head honcho now, running it in. Fingers crossed everything goes good. We got a good plan. But yeah, we're building it out. It's kind of funny going from Surface to Line to K2, and now I'm at this company, and what we do is handcrafted luxury skis. Essentially, is like our whole idea is that we looked at how skis were getting made, and everybody's making great skis, but they're not built to last. How people are making their profit margins is cutting corners on material costs and build times and outsourcing manufacturing. And we thought, what if we did the exact opposite, where, we source the best materials we can. Our build times are curated not just around durability, but longevity. And because of that, we have a premium product, but it also has premium pricing. And so we're going after this market. Like, our skis are $2,000. And there's a lot of other ski companies that make great products for under $1,000. And so we're going after this kind of more luxurious market where, we have beautiful wood veneer on the top, and a lot of people, we get asked a lot, like, is that to be skied or is that to be hung up on the wall? And it's very funny because it's almost one that we have to like talk them back, and it's like, no, you can ski these, and like not only can you ski them, but they're actually built to last longer than the other skis. And yeah, so it's one of those things, like I'm having to adapt from K2, where like we were building the cool American free ride, like all this stuff, and a bit of like counterculture. And now at Hinterland, our market is going to be, higher income families, and, a lot more tourists, people who want a statement. Like, I always kind of correlate it to a Rolex in a sense, and don't get confused. I know that we're not on the same level as Rolex, but but it's like it's a statement piece. A Rolex tells the time the same way that a $2 watch tells the time, but it has a statement, and it is built better, and it will last for a long time. And so that's kind of like the area that we're going into. And so building marketing around that, building a business plan, building, sales forecasts all around something that is such a higher price point and such a much more niche market has been really fun and interesting. And like, I think everybody out there is going to be seeing us around a lot more. We're in a building year. We're in a brand awareness year. Because we've been around for about 10 years, but this will be the first real push with the addition of me. And I'm super excited about it.
Is there many competitors in that segment of more expensive skis? Because we know that in park skiing there is a gazillion competitors.
Mm-hmm.
What does it look like? Are you guys alone in there?
We're not alone, but it's and that's what I was getting at. It's not the commonly sought after genre, but like, sorry, good burp. But there's a few, most notably our direct like DPS skis is going to be kind of in that area, little bit different than what we're doing, but definitely they offer like a premium pricing ski. And then somebody that I look at and take a lot of inspiration from is Zai skis out of Switzerland. Most people have never heard of the brand, but they've heard of the Bentley ski, and they made the Bentley ski that cost $10,000, and it's the whole thing that they're doing the kind of same thing is like, we want to build something that is luxury. It's their skis get way more expensive than ours, but like it's about the experience. Owning him is a statement. I watched a video of the CEO, and I take a lot of inspiration from him, but like, where certain clients of his, like he hand delivers them to them. And it's just kind of offering this like new service where instead of like going around and competing with like Solomon, K2J, like all these people going after the same thing, it's going for a different community. And for us, that wasn't necessarily our goal, was to go after that community. It was the products that we're creating are forcing us to go after that community, because we do not want to compromise like the heart and soul of why we built skis. And that's we craft without compromise. We use the best materials. Our skis take 7 to 10 hours a pair because of how meticulous we are about each piece, about it being laid up so that it will last. We take little pieces designed into the skis that will help with longevity of them. It's all these little pieces that we're doing that force a high price point.
Is it a construction that is specific to you guys? Like, is it something not patented, but is it something you're innovating with, or is it something that's not necessarily
So it's kind of a thing, and like, and it scares me a little bit to say this, but it's just the truth. But like, what we're doing is not new. It's just doing it right.
Yeah.
And like, and that's kind of what I mean is like, everybody's learned how to make a good ski. Everybody has access to all this stuff, but what they're trying to do is, since they're mass producing, they're cutting corners, and they're doing stuff. A good example is like how cars used to be. Cars used to be unstoppable. They last forever. But once we started making more and more and more and more and more and more, all of a sudden they started breaking down, because like that's how the industry works. And so we're not rewriting anything. We don't really have anything new. There's a few tech things that we do, and we are coming out with some new tech in the next year, which will be specific to Hinterland. But right now, it's just how we believe it is. It's just like, we use all the same materials that you find in Olympic race skis. So it's the finest ski materials you can, the finest carbon fiber, the finest fiberglass. Our cores are book matched. So they're from the exact same piece of wood. So each ski has the exact same flex. And then our build times are like, most ski companies, their skis sit in the press for 2 hours or for 15 minutes. And that creates the bonding. Ours sit in for 2 hours, because on a molecular level, the bonding is just that much better. And so because of that, in the 10 years we've been making skis, we've actually never seen a DLAM. I like to put the little asterisk, like, not saying it couldn't happen. I'm just saying the track record, it hasn't happened.
You should just do a new street part with them and then see what happens.
I should. But yeah, and so I'm ranting. Obviously I'm the CEO
No,
now, so this
keep
is all I
going.
think about.
It's interesting.
But yeah, and so like that's kind of that's our whole thing is like, and with that, like our environmental like kind of statement is everybody's trying to come out with these, new epoxies and glues and marketing pieces about how their skis are better for the environment. But at the end of the day, those skis are just ending up in the landfill. our our intention is, one, we offset our carbon footprint by we plant two trees for every ski we sell. And then also, the most environmentally thing that we can do is not have our skis end up in the landfill, have them last a long time. And so that's kind of how we're taking. We're not throwing flashy marketing terms. We're just like, hey, we're just building it better so that it lasts a long time. And then you don't have to buy as many skis. You only have to buy skis if you want to buy new skis. And then, who would throw away a perfectly good pair of skis? Like we always joke, it's like hang them up on the wall after. They're still going to be really pretty,
Hmm.
and that's kind of our whole thing. And it makes me really excited because I come from, many different aspects, but most recently at K2, I was in like the mass market, the outsourcing, and I have no knock to the skis that K2 is making. They're fantastic. Along with everybody, I would always joke with the engineers at K2 is like, it's almost hard to make a bad ski these days with how much we know. So not going to knock that. It's just they can be done better. And that's what we're doing.
Yeah. And at some point, as you said, it's not about technology or craftsmanship. It's about the business model you're choosing, kind of.
Totally.
If you want to sell 10,000 pair of skis, there's a way to do it that is not the same.
Yeah, if we were going after like selling 10,000 skis in our first thing, I can tell you we would go and we would outsource our materials, we'd outsource our manufacturing, we'd have some place in the Czech Republic building them up, and we'd be doing it that way. But
China.
yeah, or China or wherever, like, but that's not what we want to do. We want to build like, it's like I don't even like using the statement of like American made. It's not necessarily that. It's just we're doing it better, and the way for us to do it better is to have our hands on it from start to finish. Um, and yeah, and what we produce is what we believe, and we put our hanger hats on is that it's just a better product.
Well, I'm hyped that you're still involved in skiing. I think it's always dope when after a career has run its course that people can stay involved and
Mhm.
contribute. And you did it for a few years at K2. Now you're doing it in another way that maybe doesn't relate that much to a ski bum that wants a $400 pair of skis, but still, the more passionate people like you stay involved, the best everyone is.
Mhm.
So, man, shout out to you. Thanks a lot for coming on, Kai. You were on the top of my list, and I've been poking you for a few years now, but I'm stoked we got to chat.
Yeah, no, I'm stoked we finally made it happen. We've talked for those who don't know. We've talked many times in definitely different aspects. This is the first, I'd say, super fun conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you need to. You said you film with Good Company, Level One, 4x9, Toy Soldier, Poor Boys. Might be forgetting others, but your crew is good enough. You
Oh yeah,
said it. So
hands down.
you need to get on the Good Enough podcast and get some talking going.
Yeah, dude, that's a funny thing because yeah, they're like, yeah, we should, but we just don't. I'm busy, dude. I'm just busy. I'm pulling my hair out over here. But yeah, we'll get out there. We'll get on another podcast. But I appreciate you having me on, man. Really do. That was super fun.
Yeah, thanks. And I'll put on, as I always do when I release the episode, put on the stuff we talked about. But man, what a run you've had in skiing. It's really impressive. As you said, there's the Tom Wallish and the B Dogs of the world, but you're up there in the quality and quantity you've produced, man. There's a lot to be proud of. There's a lot of great contribution to skiing. So, man, congrats.
Thank you. Appreciate that. It's fun to go run through it again.
Yeah, didn't make you feel too old talking about some stuff from 20 years ago.
There's a little bit of that, but it's nice, when I'm sitting on my computer all day. It's nice to remember the glory days of like just carrying about, finding a handrail. So it's nice. It's a good gap in my week.
All right. Cheers, man. Thanks.
Cool. All right.
So this is it for episode 49 with Khai Krepela. Big thank you to the sponsors, Access Board Shop and Dickens Restaurant. And again, big thanks to the patrons on Patreon. Peace.